Yeah.
And then.
Susanna,
Letters.
I'm on Parks.
Four of us.
Susanna,
You got
we got a couple that are late.
We count for double.
Late, Chris is late.
Are we ready, Mark?
Yeah.
You're on.
Okay, so good evening and welcome to the Community Board 2 Manhattan, actually, joint committee meeting.
That's
with
right.
Traffic and Transportation and Parks and Waterfront. And I am Shirley Secunda, Chair of the Traffic and Transportation Committee. And Rich, will you please introduce yourself?
I'm Rich Cacapolo. I'm the chair of the Parks and Waterfront Committee.
Okay, and I first will introduce, you know what? I'll introduce whoever is here. Introduce yourself and just say what committee you're on. Okay, so go ahead.
Janet Liff, Transportation.
Ben Listman, Transportation, as well as Park and Waterfront.
Eddie Siegel, Parks and Waterfront.
Thank you guys for being here. Look at that, Shirley.
Lois Rakoff, Transportation Committee, Traffic and Transportation.
Janine Kiley, Traffic and Transportation.
Okay, great. So we're here.
Daniel Miller, Traffic and Transportation, remote,
Daniel.
public member. Thanks.
Who's that?
Daniel.
Dan Miller. Oh, great. Okay, Dan.
Ever see okay?
Aaron, Parks and Transportation. I mean, Parks and Waterfront.
Yes, Parks and Transportation.
That's a
Yeah.
good committee.
Oh, we have other people here from.
Yeah,
Parks.
Coral's here too from Parks.
Thanks for
Hi there, Cora.
out the link. Thanks, Coral.
Okay, Anthony. did you-
Anthony Wong, Transportation.
And Mike.
Hey, have we got everybody now, both online and in
To have a
person?
separate sheet
Here
for,
comes Stella. So will you introduce yourself, Stella?
Stella Fitzgerald.
Shirley, do you have
Transportation.
Just sign in at the
and
bottom.
traffic.
the committee?
Okay.
And.
And Anthony.
later we'll-
Yeah.
we'll
So
get-
if you are a community board member and are online, if you could turn on, or committee member, turn on your camera, please,
Thank you.
if possible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, please, because we want to see you, so we know you're here. Okay, I think we are ready. Is everybody?
Oh, yeah. Frederica's.
Okay, okay. So anyhow, first I should tell you what's going on this evening. As I said, it was a joint P&W, Parks and Waterfront and Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. And the reason is that the first item on our agenda has to do with e-bikes, transportation, and in parks. So Parks and Waterfront. And we are going to be talking about a new bill that addresses e-bikes in parks. And we have here tonight the sponsor of the bill. I believe, is she online yet?
I don't see her on here yet. I just sent her a text to see if she's having any trouble getting on. Sorry for the delay.
Oh, okay, so just let me tell you what the title of the bill is, which is, first of all, it's Intro 0060-2024. And it's, I think, been around a while. It was around in 23 too, but it's now been renewed. And
Who's Janet?
That's numbers on.
Who's Janet Schroeder? Is Janet with the
I
council
think
member?
she's with the council. Are you with the council member's office, Janet?
The council members on.
Yeah, council members on there.
What?
Councilmember Palladino is on.
Ridiculous.
I'm on.
Oh, she's on. Oh, hi there. Okay. Vicky
Everybody.
Palladino is on. And are you ready to discuss the bill? And I just wanted to say the title of the bill, which I have someplace.
It's intro 60.
Or maybe you would like to, why don't I?
Just for-
Here it is. Okay, so the bill is part of the administrative code. Operation of an electric scooter as defined in section 114E of the Vehicle and Traffic Law, and operation of a bicycle with electrical assist as defined in section 102C of the Vehicle and Traffic Law shall be prohibited in any area of any park under the jurisdiction of the Department of Parks and Recreation. That is the title of the bill. And I must tell you, we learned about this bill from a constituent who brought it to our attention. And council member, we were interested in finding out more about it. So if you can tell us a little about it, we'd really appreciate it.
Sure, of course. It's really quite easy and simple. I try to keep things as simple as possible. It's exactly as it states. I do not believe that anything with a motor on it should be in any of our parks. You know, parks are a safe space. It's a place where people push baby carriages, ride regular bicycles, and just are there to have a good time. And when you get these people zipping through, you know, nobody pays attention anymore to rules or common sense and things like that. Let me slow down. No, as a matter of fact, I was in my park, which is Francis Lewis Park down here by my house, and a couple of young people on this thing that had to be going, I would say at least 15 miles an hour. And in a park, that's pretty fast, and maybe faster yet. And I had to jump out of their way. And I said, whoa, 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 what are you guys doing? You know, like, you're not supposed to be in here with a motorized vehicle. And they saw the vehicle, it's a scooter. I said, well, I don't care what it is. It's got a motor on it. And you're going a heck of a lot faster than I am, and I'm walking. And, you know, you really should take this outside the park and use what happens to be 3rd Avenue, the main drag by the park, and take your scooters outside the park and pay attention. You know, when you get out onto the street, pay attention to what you're doing out there. And that's what made me say enough is enough. We cannot have what we have going on right now in the city with these unlicensed, unregistered, uninsured vehicles, which they all should be, and they're not. But we can't have these people in our, like I said, our safe spaces, our beautiful parks. We can't, and then they tag each other. It becomes a whole thing, and it doesn't belong in our parks. It's as simple as that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I haven't gone over what our procedure is, and that follows very well from that. And thank you, council member. Our procedure is that now that the presentation is done, our committees, in this case, our committees in plural, will ask questions. And in this case, our session is divided into two. This is the traffic and transportation, sort of parks also part, and then there will be a parks part, which Rich will be telling you about and conducting. So in this session, first, everybody, parks people, transportation people, ask questions. Committee members first, gang there. And after that, we open it up to the floor. And our guests can ask questions as well and comment. We don't comment until business session. Lots of things on the agenda tonight, particularly, so we want to get through this quickly. So I think without further ado, we're going to start right now. There goes Janine. We're going to start with folks in the room, and then we will go with our committee members online. Then we'll go to community board 2 members, and then finally to the public.
For those of you online, if you could remain muted. Hi, I'm Janine Kiley, big fan of parks, big fan of bikes, not a big e-biker.
Hi, Janine.
But, how would this be enforced?
Well, we have parks. Parks has their own enforcement teams. And once it becomes law, if you're sitting in the park, for example, having a picnic, or your kids are playing, you would actually be able to call the police officer. And it doesn't have to be a parks enforcement. It could be a regular NYPD, and they can enforce the law, which can go as far as maybe taking the vehicle away from that person who's disobeying the law, which in my opinion really should be the case. Sometimes a little slap on the wrist, go about your business. I believe in that, and just don't do that again. But we have a lot of times when you're in a neighborhood, you see the same people all the time, and you have repeat people keep constantly doing the same thing over and over again, good or bad. And those people who insist on not paying attention or listening to what I hope will be law, then I believe the vehicle should be confiscated, but that's not for me to say. That's up to the police officer or the parks enforcement.
Okay.
Okay, Janet was first, then Lois, then Eddie.
Hi, Janet Liff. Two questions. Central Park recently did a very thorough analysis of uses in the park, which is half pedestrian, half bikes. They did not recommend this. So have you talked to the Central Park Conservancy? Also, if the issue is speed, like the city bike e-bikes actually are capped. Maybe they should be at 15 instead of 18, but they have a hard stop. If the issue is speed, what about road bikes? People on road bikes can go faster than city bikes, and they do. So I don't understand what the difference is really. So those are my two questions. Have you
I'm
conferred with?
sorry.
Oh, so the two questions are, have you conferred with Central Park? And I'm sort of confused because if the issue is speed, road cyclists can go
See, you're
as,
breaking up. I don't know if you could hear me or not, but the
Yeah, we can hear
connection
you
keeps
fine.
freezing up and breaking up.
did you hear? Should I try once more?
Louder.
Okay.
Yes, please, because I
Okay,
totally,
sorry, I don't
lost
know.
you.
So the question is, Central Park Conservancy just recently did a very thorough evaluation of park uses and did not make this recommendation. So I wondered, have you consulted with them? And then also, if the issue is speed, I don't understand. Road bikes can go faster, whereas city bike
They
e-bikes
can.
top speed. So what about road bikes?
I don't want anything. This law is nothing with a motor. Nothing is allowed in the park. Nothing. Whether it be an e-bike, whether it be a scooter, whether it be those little mopeds that are being driven now, nothing with a motor. No, does not belong in our parks. And as far as speaking to Central Park Conservatory, no, not yet. When this goes to committee and we have a hearing, that is when it will be open to the public and it will present itself. And the way we're doing tonight, which is great. Thank you very much for having me, by the way. I didn't start off with that, and I should have. You will then present that to the committee itself, the
Thank
Parks
you.
Committee and the Transportation. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to, I'm the councilwoman's deputy chief of staff and legislative director. So one of the concerns is, the city bikes go, 15 or 18 miles an hour, but a lot of these e-bikes that aren't city bikes go up to 40 miles an hour. I think the concern is e-bikes that are doing 40, not so much the e-bikes that are doing 15, but it's kind of hard to carve out just a few of them when the main offenders are just going to keep doing it until we completely eliminate this issue.
But then it's sort of a cudgel.
No back and forth, please. We've got too many people,
Okay.
Lois. And then I gotta go right to Dan, I think, because I know Dan has to catch a plane. Thank you for joining us, Dan.
Understandably, your phrase was, these people zipping through the park. Now, the PEP, Police Enforcement Parks people, enforcement police, and the PD in general are on foot. How are they going to stop these people from zipping through the park and maybe warning?
Wait. Let me
I'm
stop you
sorry.
right there. First of all, you're nitpicking at my words because it sounds as if you're accusing me of saying these people in not a very nice way. I don't appreciate that. That's first thing. Second thing, how do I expect the police to go after them? Well, some of our police are on bicycles as well. And I do expect that there will be some sort of enforcement before. I know Central Park, you got to realize, I live in District 19. My parks are not Central Park. My parks are very small parks. And when you have police circling around and just doing their daily routine, and somebody makes a phone call, they will then act upon that phone call and they will apprehend by car the person who is riding the bike, the motorized vehicle, and they will apprehend and do what needs to be done. And maybe give a ticket. How about that?
Okay.
And then come back to me
okay.
afterwards.
Dan.
We're gonna go to Dan. Dan, while you're here, we're gonna catch.
Yeah, so I just wanted a clarity that when it comes to bikes that are on a bike path in a park, such as Hudson River Park or Central Park, that's not really applying. And this doesn't really separate e-bikes from regular bikes. I just want clarity that that is not what you're speaking about. You're speaking about bikes riding through parks like Washington Square Park or riding on the promenade at Hudson River Park. Is that what we're going for here?
That is correct. We have also something called Joe Michael Mile, which is 7.2 miles long along our waterfront. For those of you who are not familiar with District 19, the half side of my district is all the Long Island Sound. And we've got some beautiful places for people to ride, bicycles and things of such nature. And even with a motor on it, so long as they don't abuse it, it's fine. But I'm talking about the smaller parks, our parks that we go to, like you said, Washington Square Park. You know, you have musicians playing. I'm very familiar with Washington Square Park. It's a haven. And I don't believe that people going at 45 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour should be zipping by somebody who's giving a poetry reading or playing guitar and just enjoying an afternoon, a quiet afternoon in the park. They are a disturbance and they are dangerous. And they have proven so. So I believe that this is for our personal safety and to maintain a space in a park that we enjoy going to.
Yeah.
Okay, so next was Eddie and then Rocio.
Thank you, council member. I guess the answer to that last question was going to be similar to what I was going to ask, but now I'm more confused. So the plain reading of the bill to me was that basically the micromobility pilot from the Parks Department, this is to countermand that, the purpose of this bill. So there's no more e-bikes in Central Park at all, even on the pathways, nothing in Prospect Park, even on the bike pathways. In addition to what I believe was already banned, which was biking through Washington Square Park, for example. Is that correct? Would this prevent e-bikers?
That is correct. That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Rocio.
So I can sympathize with what you're saying very much. A lot of people have mobility issues and they cannot get out of the way when these motorized vehicles are attacking them, per se, just like they attack one when one is trying to cross the street.
It's terrible.
They do not follow the rules.
They do not.
I get a question.
Road.
Remember, we do it as questions.
Yes, I do.
No, okay.
But I will
Okay, go through.
go to my question. So thank you so much for coming. My question is, will you be having signage at the park entrance?
Oh, absolutely.
Where there is no motorized vehicles permitted?
Absolutely.
At many entrances, so that
absolutely, yes.
people know that they're committing a crime.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, these are quality of life issues. Quality of life, as we all know it, has disintegrated quite a bit by, we always allowed the simplest things to go by because it's okay. But then these small issues became very large issues. And now certain laws need to be put into place to maintain a certain quality of life. And you brought up a very good point about the mobility issue. What about a woman pushing a baby carriage who can't get out of the way quick enough? Or maybe a 3-year-old is just toddling along, running quickly after her mom, and a bike comes zooming by. You can't have that. It's all quality of life now.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think, Ben, and then Susan. Hi, Susan. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thanks, council member. Would you be able to provide us with actual data to back up like the claim that that motorized scooters and bikes contribute to more conflicts with pedestrians and other cyclists in parks?
Well, we can't call a cyclist who rides a two-wheeler, who loves to ride a bicycle, compare them to somebody who's on a motor scooter. It's apples and oranges. So to your point, I have to say that a cyclist, in my opinion, who's just enjoying his afternoon or her afternoon riding through a park should be allowed to do so without worrying about being sideswiped by somebody on a motorized vehicle. We have to differentiate between the two. And there will be stats, but at this moment, no, sir, I do not have stats.
And just to add to that, unfortunately, parks, even though they're doing this pilot program, they haven't been recording clear metrics to actually see whether or not their pilot program is working for whatever reason you can guess. But at the end of the day, it's up to parks to make sure their pilot program is working, and they're failing to do so. And when we do have a hearing on the bill, that will obviously move one of the questions. But until then, we only go off of the large number of constituent complaints that we've received, and working with the NYPD to also hear the cases that they receive concerning people getting into altercations with these motorized bikes.
And the legislative idea did indeed start with our own constituents. And some of them got hurt, broken arm, one lady, it wasn't good. And that's what motivated me to think of, and Costa, who's on this call with me, thank you, Costa, to put together a piece of legislation about how can we protect people who are just in the park enjoying themselves. What can we do about these motor scooters, these bikes? What can we do about anything that has a motor on it? Doesn't belong in a park, just doesn't belong in a park. And that's how we came about. Intro
Okay, we
6.
got Susan Gamby.
Hi, thank you for being here. Please excuse my ignorance on this, but my question is there any existing legislation regarding speed limits to motorized vehicles and even regular bicycles? Because to my co-committee members' point, it would seem that the problem is really more to do with speed than with motorization, other than to the extent that the motorization hypothetically could enable a greater speed. But again, that points back to speed being the issue. And I'm just wondering if there might be any existing legislation, or if you're aware of any pending legislation regarding speed and motorized vehicles.
Costa, do you want to take that, or
Yeah, I
you want
can
me?
address that kind of. So when I was having the bill drafted, that was one of the things that we had discussed. The issue is that the NYPD and Parks Enforcement sees no tenable way to measure that and to enforce a speed limit. So that there's no good way to do that, basically. And at the end of the day, we can't. That won't solve the problem, because it's going to be kind of difficult to have Parks Enforcement people or the NYPD with a radar basically in a park trying to enforce speed. It's not as feasible as just eliminating the motorized scooters that people use to terrorize pedestrians.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Okay, so now Janine, and then it's Eddie, and then Lois.
Okay.
Lots of
I'm
questions.
gonna, for round 2 question. I had previously asked how you enforce this, and I think of Washington Square Park, and the rules in Washington Square Park actually don't allow any wheeled vehicles, bicycles, skateboards, scooters, ATVs. They also don't allow smoking or vaping, or littering. And so I guess I just question, and there are some really large problems that our community is dealing with in Washington Square Park, and I'm sure other parks are dealing with this. Realistically, how do you prioritize enforcing these rules? And they're already 0 bicycles are allowed in this big park. So I don't understand how this will help change any of that.
Well, in Washington Square Park, perhaps not. But in a great many parks throughout the city, other than Washington Square Park, uh, it will take effect and hopefully it will pass and it will help a great many people. The fact that, enforcement is rough these days with a lot of things, we all know that. That's common knowledge, but we can maintain by signage and by a law being on the books, such as Intro 60, we can certainly help the parks throughout the other districts throughout the city. And it may not be Washington Square Park because they've already eliminated, since they did, let me ask you a question. Since they eliminated that in your park, in Washington Square Park, do you see motorized vehicles or bicycles of any sort?
Every day.
Yes.
And yes.
They tend to go very, but they tend to go very.
Okay, no shouting, we'll never get done with this. Okay, you know what, I'm gonna go to our Parks Committee members before I go back to Eddie and Lois, because they didn't have a chance. Ritu.
Yeah, good reach.
So my concern here is twofold. Number one, isn't it putting the cart before the horse? Shouldn't these motorized vehicles be registered? Shouldn't
Yes.
the first step before they are, because there are signs up in many park locations indicating that motorized vehicles or motorized bikes are not allowed. Yet there is no enforcement for that. And there
Right.
enough park staff. There are there are very rarely police in the park to do that. And so this legislation is kind of superfluous in from my perspective. Because if there's no enforcement, you're just adding regulation and law after law over regulation.
Well, this isn't regulation, this is law. It's different. Regulations are regulations, laws are laws. But I do agree with you 100%. And we
So how
have
does your legislation impact that? And my second question is, it does not differentiate between types of vehicles that people use. And for, some of the categories that were mentioned previously, like a city bike, for example, or if there is a scooter versus, a moped. Those are very different animals. And
Ritu, is this a question or
Yes.
can we discuss this in business?
my question is, how does your legislation impact either of those two questions, those two situations?
Acosta, you want to take that or you want me to do it?
I'm sorry, can you ask the question again? I have
Right.
I had back
So
to
how
septic
does
for a
this
minute.
legislation address either the differentiation in types of vehicles, or because it's very broad and it's not specific in the type of vehicle or the speed at which it can achieve, or the enforcement aspect?
Well, it does, the text of the bill does define motorized, like any bicycle that has a motor on it, and then bans those. It does define the type of
Does
bike
that
that it bans.
include city bikes, the
That
pedal
would include any bike with a motor on it, including city bikes, yes.
Okay, well,
It's
Okay.
unfortunately,
Susanna.
the city
Okay.
bikes might only go 15 miles an hour, but it's very hard to have enforcement and agents differentiating between that. We're already struggling with enforcement in the city, and that's not a reason to not
are you
pass
putting in
good
a
laws.
speed
But
limit on that?
nevertheless,
Going back and forth.
Okay, we have to go on to the next person. Susanna.
Hi, my question is, I am not familiar with any parks that don't have a bike path where biking is allowed. So I'm not clear why we need a rule against e-bikes when there's already a rule against bikes. I mean, you say that maybe Washington Square Park is an exception. I've never been in a park where it's okay to ride a bike that doesn't have a bike path. You have
well,
parks
bikes are allowed in
because
parks that don't have bike paths.
I'm sorry?
Unless bikes are allowed in parks that don't have bike paths unless it's explicitly banned.
Huh? Wait, you're saying that bikes are not, I'm sorry,
Well,
bikes
are allowed. They are allowed to be ridden in parks that do not have bike paths as long as bike riding isn't explicitly banned.
and there are parks that don't
Yeah,
explicitly.
plenty of the parks across our district allow bike riding. Just not.
I'm just
Have
gonna tell
any
you that
parks-
our impression is exactly what Susanna said.
And do we
that
have
the
any parks
regular
like that
bikes-
in District 2? Because I'm not familiar of any parks in District 2 that allow bike riding unless there's a bike path.
Years ago, you're absolutely right. What is your name, Suzanne? What is your name?
My name is Susanna.
I will say this, many years ago, it was such a thing as you are saying. No bikes were ever allowed in the park. I remember growing up. No, you were not allowed to ride your bicycle in the park. You had other places to ride, sidewalks back in those days or whatever. Times have changed. Streets are busier. People seek out parks to ride bicycles. They made the promenade, which is outstanding, by the FDR. Things like that. There are places to ride a bicycle or a motorized vehicle, but
Are you
not
familiar
inside.
with any of those in our district? Are you, because we represent our district, are you familiar with any?
Okay, you know what? We got the answer. I think the difference, Susanna, is that there is not a law for motorized.
Correct.
Bicycles and
That
scooters.
is correct. Correct. 100%.
Okay, now who are we up to? I just want to make sure we cover the folks that raise their hands.
We have
who
Coral.
are- Who are members
Yeah.
of CB2 committees.
Yeah. Sorry, Coral Dawson has her hand raised. Coral, can
Oh,
you?
sorry,
turn-
I was just
Yeah,
putting in the
yes,
chat.
please.
We do have examples of parks that allow bikes without a bike path. Mercer Playground immediately comes to mind, but there's quite a few that don't have. Yeah, Mercer Playground that's on Mercer between Bleecker and West 4th.
Okay, you know what? We're really asking questions.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that there are examples of that.
Okay, Lois, and then we really have. to-
Hi,
Okay.
this is a great conversation and I appreciate that you bring this up. Is there an exception for a physically disabled person who rides an e-scooter through the park or around in the park? Do you have an exception for that?
That will be worked out in committee, yes.
Not yet.
It's not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a concern that is being
That's-
raised
that's-
to the legislative division that's actually come up in the past. So
Yes.
before anything's passed, it would go through, like, a lot of these issues would be addressed. It's a kind of working process before it gets to committee. But yeah, we want to make sure that we don't include, obviously, like mobility scooters that are necessary for somebody to get around as opposed to an e-bike that's a recreational.
Of course,
you know,
that's unreasonable.
product.
Businesses businesses.
Yeah, we'll-
Yeah, let's do them.
Okay, Ally, is that who's been talking? Oh, okay.
Your playground has no.
Okay, then you're okay, Ally. You said what you needed to say. So we are going to our guests. Anybody want to ask?
Can I just ask this a question?
Right, but it's-
My family owned, this is off topic. This is off topic.
What?
My family owned a jewelry store on McDougal Street.
Sorry.
Since 1959, they closed in 2014. And my brother lived down on West 8th Street for a very, very, very long time. I would say close to 30 years. So I
Okay.
am very familiar with your area. And you may be familiar with their jewelry store. It was called Say Magnifique across the street from Minetta's on Minetta Lane. And I am familiar with your area. And I love it down there. It was like a home away from home for me for many, many years. So yes, I am familiar. Continue on. I just wanted to give you a little side talk.
We definitely are interested in this subject because of intersect our areas. That's many. And we've got
Zeldin.
Zeldin. of
Yes,
course. He was
hi,
only on
council
our
member.
board.
My name is Adam Zeldin. I'm a former member of CB2. I since have moved to your borough. I live in Queens now.
Okay.
I do have a few questions about the bill. Thank you for coming and sharing your perspective on this. I
Of
think
course.
number one, I'd be very excited to see a whole other class of motorized vehicles banned from parks, that is cars. There's still a lot of parks that have roads through them, which is, really pollutive and uncomfortable. So would you also consider banning cars from roads that cut through parks? For example, the Long Island Expressway that goes through Flushing Meadows. That's a serious question. Second, like just as context, I was hit by a truck when I was in high school, tore 3 ligaments in my knee. I was riding a bike, not an e-bike. I was pretty strong then. I stayed strong through college, but my knee has kind of deteriorated. Now I rely on an e-bike to like still enjoy biking, to still, get around. I'm just not as strong as I was when I was a little younger. I know that a lot of my older neighbors also rely on e-bikes to, get around, to enjoy the outdoors. There was a great question about assistive devices and wheelchairs, electric scooters, electric wheelchairs. But like for a lot of people, I just want to ask, are you aware that people use e-bikes to assist with mobility issues so that they can continue to, enjoy the outdoors? Another question, you mentioned that, you would allow e-bikes on bike paths, but then, there was a comment, I think, from your staffer who said that this would ban e-bikes on bike paths. Just could you clarify, like, Hudson River Greenway, am I allowed to ride an e-bike, an e-city bike going 18 miles an hour? And then my fourth question, I know it's a lot. You said that, the NYPD can't enforce speed. They have no way to like effectively enforce speed. This is really concerning to me because, these mopeds come by me going 50 miles an hour when I'm in the bike lane.
I know, it's crazy.
It's crazy. And the cars do the same thing. I cross the street and there's cars that are going by 60 miles an hour right in front of the cops in my neighborhood in Queens. And the cops just, sit there twiddling their thumbs. So like, is there a
where in Queens are you, may I ask?
Yeah, I'm in Long Island City, by the waterfront. So maybe
It's
we need
beautiful there, but yes, it's crazy.
So my final question is just like, is there a bigger question about the effectiveness of the NYPD as an enforcement agency if they can't enforce the laws today as they're written? Like e-bikes are illegal that go 50 miles an hour. Those are illegal. They cannot be sold in New York. They cannot be ridden in New York. And if the NYPD can't enforce the rules as written today, like, maybe we should consider changing the enforcement strategy. Those are my 4 questions. I really appreciate you coming here.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. I thank you for your questions. They're great questions. E-bikes, when they were first introduced, I think were a terrific idea. And for people like you, they're great because people like you pay attention and you do what's right. Unfortunately, we have a great many people who take advantage of our good nature. And what we first established is what we thought was going to be a very good idea. And it's those bad neighbors, as we call them, that we try and must protect the innocent from. You yourself. I mean, you're on a bike, you're doing the right thing, and these people go zipping by you at 50 miles an hour. Many years ago, there was something called a razor scooter. I don't know how many of you remember that from your kids. They had a razor scooter. And then one day you woke up and your kid's friend had to put a motor on his razor scooter. This is years ago. I have a 47-year-old son. And I have to tell you, I was like, what are you doing with a motor on your scooter? You're just supposed to use your one foot. And it wasn't funny after that because the kid tripped up. He ended up with some damage, to the head, and it wasn't funny anymore. So unfortunately, a lot of the people who are good are going and do the right thing are going to have to pull back a little bit because certain laws, again, quality of life, have to be put into place to protect the good people, the people who do the right thing. And because there's far too many people taking advantage of what started out quite simply as innocent has now become horrible. They don't obey the rules of the road. Bob Holden, I don't know if you're familiar with Council Member Bob Holden. He's having a press conference next week on the steps of City Hall. He wants to make sure that his bill is passed to register, license, and insure these vehicles because they are, in a sense, vehicles. They go 40 and 50 miles an hour. And if somebody gets hit by one and goes flying, that person on a scooter there's no way to track them. You get into a car accident, you exchange papers, your license, your registration, you make sure. So this way the person is held accountable. When these scooters go around for businesses to make deliveries and they crash into a car or they crash into a pedestrian, God forbid, the store owner who hired this person must be held accountable. It's his scooter. He bought that scooter. And too many people are getting hurt. People are running ramshackle with no responsibility on these motorized vehicles. They must be considered a vehicle and treated as such. The bikes is a different story. We have bike paths in certain parks, the 15-mile-an-hour e-bikes, absolutely, like I said, this is all going to come out in the wash, as they say. Nobody who needs assistance in a wheelchair or a scooter will ever be demonized for that at all. That will be specified, of course. We're talking about these people who just blatantly.
Okay.
Oops, we can't hear you anymore.
I think we've.
Oh dear, can you hear us? Raise your hand.
Oh, she's frozen. I thought she's.
Yeah, she froze.
I think we can discuss it.
Let me see if I can turn her camera off and she'll come back on.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
I think that's the last, right? Everybody had their say.
Yeah, I think so. I don't see anyone in the.
Online, we have 8 people with questions.
gosh.
Can you show that so Shirley can read it? But the first one is Janet Schroeder. I can allow her to talk.
Oh, she can talk. Let's have the folks online and the public talk then. Although I will tell you, can you please identify if you are from Community Board 2 and what street you live on? Because this is really kind of for input for Community Board 2.
Well, Community Board, I'm Janet.
We're really running behind and we.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I am not from Community Board.
No, she's.
What?
Her
Do
staff.
you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. I am not from Community Board 2, but I'm from New York City, and there are parks all over the city. So to me, it doesn't really matter. This is a pilot program for e-bikes in all the parks in New York City. It's a citywide issue. And Vicki, thank you so much for writing this common sense legislation and caring about our most vulnerable New Yorkers that are being forgotten, the disabled and the elderly that no longer want to parks at all. I am the director of the Vehicle Safety Alliance, and I'm always so worried when I hear some of these questions. Very simple.
Janet, I'm sorry.
They
We really want to hear
pounds.
from Community Board 2 people first. And do you have a question?
I'm on here to speak as an expert EFSA on the victims of e-vehicle violence in our parks. Why would you want to hear from victims of e-vehicle violence in the parks?
Oh, she's back.
I'm just saying Community Board 2 district folks first. And by the way, we have many things on our agenda, gang.
You called my name, sorry.
And we have to have time limits. So
can I have my 2 minutes at some point though? Because
that's it. I'm sorry, Janet. You had your time.
How long are we going to do for the next people?
I'll do the 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Okay, so next is Ron Wisniewski.
You're muted. Council member, you're muted.
So first you have to identify anybody who is not from Community Board 2, please put your hands down for now, and then we will take you after the folks from Community Board 2.
I just want to say thank you to Janet. I did hear what she said. I think I was muted. I have to go now. I have to hop off. It's been a really, really long day. I want to thank you very, very much for even inviting me to speak before your community board. I think it's very important that people come together throughout the entire boroughs, and Manhattan, Lower Manhattan's one of my favorite places, and I am here.
Okay, thank you so much. And we really have to move on. So thank you so much
You're
for
very
coming
welcome.
yourself
Appreciate it.
instead
Thank
of
you.
sending somebody. We really appreciate it, Council member.
Absolutely, anytime.
And
Thank you, guys.
They
Have a
will
great
be
night.
addressing this.
We still have a few questions.
Arlene
Yes.
is on.
Okay, Darlene, let me get Darlene.
Darlene is allowed to talk.
Darlene, you're on.
Darlene. No.
And what are we limiting it to?
2 minutes.
2 minutes and Richard, Darlene, you can start.
Okay, Richard's time.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good evening. My name is Darlene Lutz. I am a longtime resident of Community Board 2, as most of you know. I live on next to the Holland Tunnel. I'm very familiar with bikes everywhere, and cars and traffic and all the rest. I want to thank CCM, Vicky Palladino, for bringing this legislation up. I know she's already left, but there has to be some common sense brought back to the city. And we do not have, I'm getting feedback in the room. Can you mute yourselves? Thank you. I'm getting feedback. You're still talking. I'm talking.
Quiet in here, Darlene. It's quiet in the room.
Thank you. You know, you'd have to be blind not to see what has been going on the streets. The bikes, e-bikes are out of control. They have been since, it was de Blasio's parting gift to give them. And yes, we need more laws. We need laws on the books. And when people ask, why aren't the police enforcing? Come on now. We know why the police aren't enforcing. That enforcement comes from the top. It comes from the mayor. It's been existing since Bloomberg. They wanted the bike lanes. They wanted the city bikes to work. And this is what we have now. Absolute chaos. It's dangerous for those of us who are getting older and don't have eyes in the back of our head, which nobody does. It is very, very dangerous out on the streets. And to deny this is ridiculous. And it can't keep continuing.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you, Darlene.
Okay, I think the 2 minutes are up, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll go through, yeah.
Who's next?
Ron Wisniewski.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We see
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us. I'm a member of the E-Vehicle Safety Alliance as well, and we have been working on this issue for 3 years now. And the problem is the lack of enforcement, obviously, of e-bikes, e-vehicles. People are being knocked down. People are have severe brain injuries. They are disabled for life because of this issue. Now, the one place we had that we didn't have to deal with this problem on our streets was in our parks. And the park, for example, Central Park was designed to be a tranquil place to get away from the stress of the city. And now they are redesigning the park to let more e-bikes in so that they can go in a loop around the park. They should be banned from the park. It's a pilot program and you talk about the statistics of that program. They are skewed. Talk to the police at the Central Park precinct. Go to your own. I've been to yours, 6th precinct, through your efforts there. And I know what you guys are going through in Washington Square. But I tell you, you need to, this is out of control. The pilot program must end, and the way to end it is to pass Vicky's bill. And the other bill, Bob Holden's bill, would license and register all e-vehicles so that we can write tickets and we can get them off. We can get these people to start obeying the law to make the rest of us live safely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, Frederica, who is a member of Parks and Waterfront Committee.
Hi,
You
thanks
see-
very
hi,
much.
Frederica.
The first, I had my hand raised originally because I wanted to talk about enforcement, but that was the first topic that Janine brought up. I do think that if there's I can't imagine a situation where I'm going to get knocked down or brushed, and any policeman or PEP officer is going to be anywhere near me in a position where they can run after or accost someone who's driving an e-bike or an e-scooter in the park. So that's that. But I do think that it's better to discourage dangerous behavior through signage than it is to not have the signage because there's issues of whether you can 100% enforce it.
Okay, I'm sorry, Frederica.
One other little thing, please.
The committee's asking questions. We'll discuss the rest in business session, okay?
Okay, fine.
Are you ready? Okay,
Sorry.
thanks.
Public hearing. It's
But
not-
if you, who are we asking questions of if the council member has left?
This is the committee. The committee asks questions, then we discuss it, okay?
With the questions.
Her staff is still on.
That's right.
Okay, we have Andrea.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay on for as long as I could. I might drop off at a certain point, but I'm gonna try to stay on for a little while.
Okay, thank you.
We have Andrea Peterson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm a longtime resident of CB2, over 40 years. I ride and walk in the neighborhood on a daily basis. And I just have to say, people ride in parks because it's not safe in the streets. There's not a really proper infrastructure for people riding bikes. And I think if that's made clearer, that would be a lot better. And the destruction caused by cars that drive like maniacs, park on my sidewalk, is so much worse than being hit by an electric vehicle. So I think you need to really consider that and don't vote for this bill, really, because it doesn't really help things to be safer for both pedestrians and cyclists. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome.
Kyler? Is that the?
Kyler James.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi. I left my dinner in the subject of e-bikes. I work almost every day when it's warmer in the park as the wizard, and I don't see many e-bikes, and I don't see many bikes, and they don't bother me. What I'm concerned about, and I know Eric is concerned about, is if he's listening, is the fact that all performers and artists are being kicked out of the entire area of the center of the park. And this is our life. This is our livelihood.
Oh, listen,
our life.
Tyler, we're going to address that. We have that on our agenda. This is not the time. We're talking about e-bikes now. So hang in there, okay?
Okay, thank you very
We'll try to
much.
get through this one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now who else is there? Anybody else from Community Board 2 area?
Chris Sanders.
Chris Sanders, he lowered his, he's permitted to talk.
Oh, I'm in Community Board 5. I'm not in Community Board 2. So yeah,
We're
sorry.
just trying to get you on with Community Board 2.
Okay.
Anybody else?
We have Kyler James.
That's who just.
Okay, sorry.
And he's really for parks.
Carrie Michaels. Pam Manas. Austin Celestin.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Austin? No.
Pam, do you live in CB2?
I do not.
Okay, well, I'm gonna wait. Austin Celestin, are you CB2?
I do not live in the neighborhood. I do go to school and work
Okay.
in the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm a pedestrian. I'm a city biker. I've been hit by a deliverista. I've also been hit by a city bike. I have needed crutches for a week. And I strongly disagree with Paladino's bill. A lot of the issues when it comes to speeding, it's the visibility, it's an infrastructure. It's also, if we're talking about speeding and the deliveristas in particular, it's the issue of their work requirements. I was able to pick up the phone of the deliverista who hit me. I had my bearings enough to see his phone. He had to be 4.5 miles away in 10 minutes, which is why I sent him off. I could have kept him there, waited for the police, held him there, but instead I sent him away because I knew that he had somewhere to be. My injuries were not that important, and I would have rather hold the delivery company, whether it was Uber Eats or Grubhub, accountable than the biker who was just trying to make ends meet and would have gotten fired if he didn't make that work. As for Vicky's bill, I city bike in the streets. I city bike in Central Park. I city bike in the Hudson River Greenway, and I prefer doing it in the parks because it's safer. I don't have to worry about getting hit by a car. I've gotten hit by a car, even a slow moving one. I also got injured. I think what CB2 has done a really good job of is advocating for bike lanes. You need to expand the infrastructure for bike lanes because that'll get a lot of those e-bikes out of the path because parks aren't all that convenient for deliveries.
Thank you.
Get
We're
those
gonna
e-bikes-
Thanks, Austin.
person.
Okay.
I've muted him.
Yeah, it was 2:13, sorry.
So Jeffrey Rowland.
Yeah, we know Jeff. You know Jeff.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi,
Jeffrey-
folks. How are you all?
Good.
Hope
Hey.
you had a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
The codification is difficult business. And for starters, let's start with why are they not considered motorized vehicles under state law? I mean, certainly my car and my sailboat and motorcycles are all considered that. My sailboat doesn't even go 5 miles an hour with a motor. So that speed issue can't really be a factor. But it seems to me that you can't even say that it's internal combustion engines because obviously we have electric cars, we have Tesla, we have others. They're required to have registration, insurance, and they're actually supposed to be operated by a licensed driver. So I don't know why these are not included in state law, just starting there. So yes, codification is difficult, but we're addressing just the parks. That specific narrow ban. And I think that it makes total sense to have this ban for parks with a couple of questions that confuse me. It is not going to just be wheeled vehicles, because if it's just wheeled vehicles, you're going to have a problem in the golf carts with golf courses that are run by the city that are part of the Parks Department. So that's going to be a separate issue. You also have an issue where there are bike lanes clearly marked out, like the Hudson River Park has. So how do you exclude that? But yes, most parks, I do think that they shouldn't be allowing motorized vehicles of pretty much any kind, with the exceptions that I've just stated. And that's really about all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
The pro, right in at 2 minutes. Look at Jeff.
So we have two hands left, Pam Manas and Carrie Michaels. Wait, don't think her CB2.
Yeah, well, that's okay. It's just those two. That's fine.
Pam,
Yeah,
you have 2
Are you
minutes.
there?
yeah, I'm here. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so very, very quickly. So I'm a victim of an e-vehicle crash, assault. I am partially paralyzed and I lost my career as a cellist. This was 2.5 years ago. And this is a no-brainer issue. The park is supposed to be a quiet place for walking and bringing your babies. I raised 3 children here besides having a dog now that I walk every day in the park. And it is crazy dangerous out there. There are mopeds. Whether we have laws that are enforcing or not is not what we're about. We are trying to just make it safe in the park, if nothing else. That is what this is about, right? So let's talk about how, not speed, although speed is a problem too, but how about how heavy these bikes are? City bikes are twice as heavy. I don't know the exact amount of weight, but much heavier than a regular bike. And so it's not, you can't compare it. Also, we've all witnessed mopeds in the park too. I mean, this is out of control. Mopeds are motorcycles. They're not scooters. They're mopeds and they're motorcycles. And so what are you talking about? Like, why do we want to live like this in the parks? It's bad enough if we have to live on the streets like this. And that's how I got hit. Okay. Anyway, that is my 2 minutes. EVSA was started because of my story. Okay.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you for listening. And
Real
thank you,
quick.
Vicky Palladino, for a great bill.
Okay. We've Carrie Michaels. Christopher Sanderson.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
So I understand the problem of e-bikes, the driving too fast in the park and all that. I technically agree with that. but I don't think that this legislation is going to solve the problem. And I think what's going to happen is all of these, the enforcement's going to come in and it's going to target minorities and Black people. Many of them are just trying to work, and and a lot of them are in Harlem and everywhere all over the city, providing services and stuff, food and everything for people. A lot of people use Central Park to get to work. I used to use Central Park to get to work before I moved to Community Board 5. So I rode a pedal assist e-bike that goes up to like 25 miles an hour. So so it'll, all these rules and regulations and laws that people are trying to pass, as a Black guy, I'm an immediate target and unfairly, and I'm just trying to get around the city like everybody else. And so I made it a point to join this meeting because I don't agree with this. I don't think people should support it. I think they should use the infrastructure to enforce the speed that they want to have. All right. And I also think the bill is too broad.
Okay.
I think it's too broad. It needs to limit it to smaller parks, not Central Park or Hudson Path.
Okay, your time's up, Christopher. Thanks very much. Okay, you know what?
Thank you. Hi.
I
Hi.
have
Can
to
you
say-
hear me now? This is Carrie Michaels. Can you hear me? I wasn't unmuted.
Okay,
Hello?
just 1 minute.
We have 1 minute now because we're running.
Right, I'll take my 2
we've
minutes.
got a
Thank
lot
you
of things
so much.
on.
I'm Carrie Michaels. I'm a victim of e-vehicle violence. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Vicky Palladino and for this board for hearing the meeting and hearing everyone speak. I've been hit twice by e-vehicles. They are very heavy. They have flammable lithium-ion batteries. Whoever said in the meeting that the Central Park Conservatory statistics are correct, they're wrong. They are not correct. I know this for a fact because I look at the statistics and I know I'm a cyclist, so I know, and I'm in the park often. We have more infrastructure in this city laid down for bike lanes than any other city in the country. So the infrastructure is not the issue. The issue is the speed that deliveristas are traveling as well as city bikes. They are egregious. Please, someone just shot and killed executive today and rode off on a city bike. Now, you tell me that there isn't a need for
Carrie,
legislation.
can you talk about parks? Bikes,
Parks, he went through the park. He went through the park. Okay. So the parks is this. I've been hit in the park. I'm a cyclist. I want to be able to continue to ride in the park. I was hit in the park by an e-bike on my bike. So I think that there is room, of course, with some tweaking and of course with some discussion, but there's absolutely room for registration licensing of e-bikes in the park so that it holds people accountable. People are not after a marginalized group. Everyone knows that deliveristas are not going anywhere. People are going to order their food. City bikes are traveling, but we need enforcement around speed. We need enforcement around where people can travel. I, by the grace of God, survived. Okay, not everyone is, and people are permanently injured. E-bikes do not belong, any e-vehicle does not belong in the park. Granted, there are people that need e-vehicles who are compromised. I'm not against any of that. I love to ride my bike, but I don't ride an e-bike. And Hudson River Park is a disaster. I was nearly hit on the park by a child.
Okay. Sorry, time's up. Thank you very much, Carrie.
Okay, and we have Nabil Khatri.
Hi there. Are you taking comments now from people not living in CB2?
Yes.
Yeah, now we're up to you. 1 minute.
I'll be fast. My name is Nabil. I'm a small business owner. We actually rent out family bikes to families. These are bikes that have seat for children, and almost all of our bikes are pedal assist. And these bikes make it possible for people to, replace their cars with bikes. I myself, I live in near Vicky Palladino's district, and I take my sister to school and doctor appointments on a bike. If I did, and we go through parks. That's the thing. That's the key part. Parks are where it's safe to ride. A lot of these pedal assist bikes, they don't go that much faster, or actually they go slower than regular bikes. I think all that this will do is really make it hard for people to get on bikes. If you pretty much eliminate these safe paths, her staff said that this includes any area in a park. not support this bill because there are safe bike paths through parks that families use. So just consider that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, John Noble.
John, you're on.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just a little discombobulated trying to unmute. My comment is quick. I'd just like to say that we should be encouraging, green modes of transportation to combat climate change, and blanket bans on e-bikes are a discouragement of this. And I think that with careful consideration, I really do think that building infrastructure into the situation to protect people from injury and interaction is the way to go, and not registration and legislation of banning of e-bikes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're into business
Right,
session.
business session.
And
Give the rules of business session.
okay, so the first, and let me explain to everybody that's here for the other items on the agenda. We're doing a separate little business session just for this item, and then there will be a business session again for all the parks and waterfront items. So right now it's discussing 0060. You want to start, Fred, and then Janine?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's really going to be important for us with this legislation to disaggregate broader sentiment around e-bikes with the proposed text of the bill. And which is that there is specifically a small portion of mileage in the city where biking is in general allowed. As part of this, e-biking in general is allowed as part of this micromobility pilot. They are banned across all parks. Yeah, I think you had brought up Mercer Playground. I just looked up. There's a sign on Mercer Playground that says no bikes. It's a very small sign. There should be bigger signs.
So regular bikes,
But
okay.
all biking is banned.
Okay.
Somebody responded to Corbin's comment.
New York
Yeah.
City parks.
They're all banned. So we have this,
Yeah.
Can people e-bike in what are, I don't know all the places in it.
Greenways.
In Greenways, Central Park, Prospect Park, I bike through a lot, at all. I think Palladino would get rid of all e-bikes in the city if she could. She's taking the most politically
but
potent ways to do it.
That now.
I know. And so this is just her most politically potent way to do it. And by saying this is all parks, it's already banned in all parks. There's a handful of things there to ban it. There are millions of e-bike rides in CB2. I don't know how many go into R1, the Greenway, and actually, does it even stretch all the way down? I don't think it does to CB2, but where? The micromobility pilot. That's part of technically in our community district. Anyways, I think this is a terrible bill. I think we should write a resolution saying we are against it. We've generally been a pro bike riding group because all of the things that people seem to be caring about are already banned. It's already banned in parks. They need more enforcement in places where it's already banned.
But the e-bikes are not, right? The e-bikes.
No, they're banned in all parks unless they're in this pilot, which is why I think it's important to get those facts on. And then the other part is the 40 mile per hour motorized scooters are also illegal.
They're already.
We should be cracking down on those. We should absolutely be cracking down on those.
Yeah.
Okay.
I oppose this bill because it's just like a little Band-Aid / propaganda thing, and it sounds good if you tweet it out that you co-sponsored it. I would like CB2 to have a forum where we have clear, this is the law, and so clearly explain to everyone a short presentation of what currently exists, where the holes are, and then we can talk about where the holes are. And we do know that there's like a couple pieces of state legislation that are proposed, including the EVSA bill that people have been talking about, Bredholm and Siegel's bill, that are broader ways to address some of these issues. So I think we have a couple things. We have enforcement issues already, and we have existing laws that are already not being enforced. And then we're some really good legislation at the state level that would be helpful to better understand.
Okay, I'd like to ask a question. Do we want to do a resolution that lays out either the reasons that we think other things should be done? Because it seems we've gone through a lot of this now, and I think we have to respond in some way.
Yeah, let's all agree on, are we writing a resolution I think what we're doing, and disagree with me, is that we're writing a resolution opining on the bill as it applies or as it would apply to CB2.
Or I would, you can't go broader and just say that we think it's a bad bill. And
Not everybody thinks.
Okay, I don't think it's a bad
I think we should hear everybody's comments
Yeah,
before we
right.
decide what we're writing.
I keep this in mind that we're feeding into some kind of resolution.
Yeah.
It says what maybe we'd like to see done. And this, doesn't say it.
By the way, folks, I just plopped on something that.
Susan's talking, okay? Susan.
I think what I'm going to say is what many, but not all, will agree with, is that the bill is simply too broad.
Yeah.
It's a one size fits all, but it doesn't even actually address the real problems in many ways. So it's simultaneously too broad, and yet in a way not broad enough in how it doesn't acknowledge any kind of sensible sequencing here, like registration of vehicles, like enforcement, like all the other ingredients that should come first before anything like this is even.
Okay, so one of the things it does not address really is enforcement. So that would be something. Then what else?
Well, there are issues regarding, just the idea of speed limits in general. I mean, just to say it's too hard to do that is not really a good enough reason to not try. I mean, I think it's solving the wrong problem in many. I think what this bill does is in attempts to solve the problem in wrongly. And I just think we have to kind of define what those wrong ways are, but at the same time, honor the very real problem that it is, that it seeks to address. I don't want to diminish at all that this seeks to address a very real problem. But, aside from the problems that I've already mentioned, I have pragmatic ones that this bill could pass and still this problem wouldn't really be solved.
Right.
Because the problems with e-bikes are not, or any bikes or coexistence of pedestrians, cars, and bikes are not limited to parks.
Or e-bikes.
Or e-bikes.
Right. Yeah, that's as you raised in your comment.
So you're also saying that we have to address it in a broader way.
Yeah.
In a broader
Or in
way.
a more, in a further upstream.
Yeah.
Let's say, not use the word, but further upstream.
So like speed, enforcement.
Registration, enforcement.
More, both the motorized and the non-motorized, right?
Yeah.
Right, she said, yeah. And we also talked about city
Motorized
bikes,
and the pedal assisted.
about city bikes versus faster e-bikes. Yeah.
Okay, and the pedal assisted, thank you. Okay, so, and the pedal, okay, Lois
Well,
first,
I
then
agree.
Janet, then Rosia.
It's passionate, it's very passionate, and it's very real about the dangers of these e-bikes going through a park. But I would like to see something, an exception for, as I mentioned, for physically disabled or physically challenged people that are on e-bike, they're not on an e-bike, but they would be on a e-scooter. And that's very important to place that. And plus, again, enforcement. It's great to have a law, but how are you going to enforce it? I have seen PEP there, and they then the e-bike at Park, Washington Square Park, and they come. They go down Fifth Avenue to cut through and then go down to Lower Manhattan. And then how are you going to stop that person? Yes, there's a walkie-talkie, whatever you call the mechanism right now. And who are they going to say, oh, stop the person in brown shirt.
You do that.
And black. And black. And pink. Or, and they go like
Right,
that.
okay.
And a vehicle.
Enforcement, that's
Yeah.
enforcement again.
Yeah.
Okay, who do we have next? We have
I didn't
Janet,
go
and then
yet.
we have Rocio, and then we have Ben.
We have some of us online.
Oh, I forgot you. Read who's next.
And Amy's
Sorry.
there.
Hey, what about me? I'm next.
I don't know, we all want.
What about who?
Susanna.
Okay, and then Susanna.
Couldn't, one right here. That was a high register.
Okay. You're after all these people. Okay, go to it, Ritu.
I think the earlier comments are spot on. It is a broad language. It doesn't specify on speed limits. If we can measure speed limits for cars, we can measure speed limits for motorized vehicles. It does not differentiate between pedal assisted regular bikes and motorized bikes. There's already, as you can see from what I put up on the screen, there's already regulations in New York City. And you can see basically, what the limits are and what is required. The fact is they're not enforced. And so adding a new piece of legislation on top of what we already have is not helpful. That's it.
Thank you, Ritu. So now Susanna.
Yeah, I agree with Ritu. I just want to say that bicycles are not allowed in parks. They're not allowed in playgrounds. They're not allowed in parks. They're allowed on greenways. And we don't have greenways except for Hudson River Park, which is not a city park. I think that the legislation is misdirected and superfluous. If there was enforcement of the existing rules, we wouldn't even have this problem. And obviously enforcement is an issue, as someone else has said, across the board, on our streets. Forget about our parks.
And on our sidewalks.
And so I think it's silly legislation. I think it's silly.
Okay. Who do we have next? We had Janet. Then we had Rocio.
Amy's behind you.
Okay, so I'll be quick. I really just want to second, what Ritu and what Susanna just said. I think is a punitive, mean-spirited, poorly written piece of legislation. And there's no differentiation. So much of the conversation was about mopeds, 40 miles an hour mopeds. We have laws. Let's do the laws, get the laws enforced that we already have. And sort of maybe take it from there. But this legislation is, and I say mean-spirited because, Adam was saying, he needs an e-bike to get somewhere. So he can't go through the park because he needs to get somewhere, or somebody taking their kids, or when I can't use a regular bike anymore, I can't use a city bike e-bike. So they've just kind of thrown the book at everything without any nuances.
Okay, so you're next, right?
Hey, Janet, I've got a minute before I get on my plank. Can I just say one thing? We didn't mention parklets. We just approved a parklet bike ramp to go from Hudson River Park across the sidewalk into the park. It was.
Wait a minute, no, Van. We're going to other people.
All right. Okay, I'll see you later. I gotta log off.
Yes,
Right,
bye.
Bye, Dan.
Have a good trip. Rosie,
Drive safely.
See you Monday.
Patiently, please.
So all parks are not made the same.
That's right.
All parks are different. Some parks have a way for pedestrians to walk on the pathways. Other parks have places for bicycles to go on, whether they be e-bikes or regular bicycles, non-motorized bicycles. But what is not right is for you to think that we should not pass a law that's going to help people, the quality of life of people. One of our former board members, Carol Yankee, who has passed away, was actually hurt by a bicycle when she was crossing the street. Whether they're motorized or not, bicycles can be very dangerous to pedestrians, to people who are strolling in the park. And so just because you think that we don't need to pass a law, if we don't pass laws, then we don't need enforcement. Okay, so we have to pass laws that enforce, and we should request that the laws be enforced. That's most important than anything else. But if we don't have the laws on the books, what are they going to enforce?
Okay.
I am in full favor of this particular thing. It's not in committee yet. I'm sure they're going to do a lot of stroking. I'm sure they're going to take care of it. They're going to hear what our comments are, and I'm sure they're going to take all of our comments into consideration. I am against bicycles that go in the street and hurt people. whether it's any kind of bicycle. And I have said before, and I will continue, I have an idea that I've had for years. And it's the acronym SLIRP, SLIRP. And I'm going to bring it to your attention again. S for safety. This is regarding bicycles, all bicycles. L for license. I for insurance. R for registration. And P is for parking. All those things you should consider, and they should add that to this bill. Any questions?
Well, I don't have questions. And we want,
There is no registration at the city level.
We've also remembered.
It has to be on the state.
I would say that I agree with a lot of what's said here today. It's very broad. They,
Yeah, come over here. So
All right.
everybody-
I would agree with a lot of what's just said here tonight. It's very broad. I think we should recommend that they come back and present again after it goes through committee. I would like to hear what they have to say after committee, but I also think we should recommend that they pull out city bikes. City bikes only go 15, 18 miles an hour. As we've all said, it's easy to carve out for city bikes. I'm just saying, you could easily have them just say, if something like this did go forward, just take out city bikes. It doesn't
exempt the city bikes?
A city bike, yes, because
They're already not allowed in Washington.
Yeah.
okay, whatever. Anyway, here's what I don't think enforcement is going to happen. There aren't enough people to enforce it. I've talked to the police in our neighborhood, and they say there are too many people. There are too many bikes. We don't have enough people. They're having trouble recruiting. I have to be honest with you. I don't think we can wait for the police to enforce any of these laws. There aren't enough of them, and they have other things to do. I'm just going to bring that out there. So I think this is something that will have to be a community-based. Well, that's a whole nother story. All I just wanted to say is we can't sit by and wait for the police to enforce these laws. There aren't enough of them. They've said there aren't enough of them. They're having trouble recruiting. There aren't enough people to do it. There are too many people riding bikes in the city. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not against bikes, please. Don't jump on me, okay? I'm just saying, it's not gonna happen.
Well, that's why
All
infrastructure.
right, then next, and then I see that there's Frederica and then Carl.
I think we're looking for a way to pull this together. into a
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the main points we've kind of realized is that there are sort of existing laws around this already. It seems superfluous. It seems too broad. The other things I just wanted to mention is that like parks, in this case, the parks that we are sort of talking about where bikes seemingly are allowed, like Central Park, like that is also, it's not just recreational space, it's transportation infrastructure. It's necessary for people to use to get around. I think Palladino's team was using the term, they seem to be referring to people in parks only using those spaces for recreation, which I just don't think is correct. And they're also using language around e-bikes and e-scooters, like assault and attack. The bikes don't do those things and people don't do those things on bikes. Collisions happen. We have to work to make streets safer and parks safer, but I don't know if, any police report would show you somebody was assaulted with a bike.
Like a weapon, like.
Actually, that's the latest. Wait a minute now, let's not back and forth, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Frederica, and then Carl, and then that's it, I think, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of members of
Hey,
the.
I have a couple minutes here. I think we should put together a letter that reflects the pros and cons of this current bill. I don't think you necessarily do a resolution if you don't have a point of view, and I think it would be a mistake to come out either for or against the bill with the current language. It's going to be massaged, it's going to be worked on, and I think it would be more helpful to Ms. Palladino to hear what we thought of her presentation and everything that everybody said. On a CB2 basis, I think it would be a good idea for us to go around and take snapshots of the regulations in the various parks. And let's see if they actually reflect the current legislation or the current rules. for bikes. Make sure that there's some consistency and that they're up to date. And then we can talk about enforcement. But if one says one thing and another says another, and they're not in line with what the current rules are, then I think it's a mistake to do anything. Thank you.
Okay, Carl.
Yes, thank you. So I'd like to pull back and go up much higher in terms of what we would encourage the city to do, because I think we can all agree that we're concerned about safety and that there are different rules that apply to different places. And it's very difficult to have a universal application given the different nature of all of our open spaces and also what's required. So what could be possible, and I put this in the chat, is that we focus on the city and its agencies coordinating to invest in infrastructure like tags on every bike, just like you have on every, you have a license plate on every car. You can have a tag on every bike, whether it's a public bike or a private bike, and you can have GPS that enforces the rate. So then you have the ability over time in the future, this is not tomorrow, but to say this area is the speed limit is X. And you can change it, depending on whatever. But then it's enforceable, it's documentable, it's not like there's prejudice involved. The rate of this vehicle was going X amount in an area that was Y. Therefore, you get a ticket. Automatic, sent to your mailbox, pay it or contest it. It's not personal. It is what has been deemed as appropriate for this particular site. But we can't do that today because we don't have something that's actually well, we can. When people drive, you can scan that through tolls. We do it at
we can't
booths.
do it at the meeting because we didn't have it on the agenda.
Okay, well, I'm saying that the focus should be on what is actually enforceable and doing the infrastructure and thoughtfulness around what would work. And that's what we need. We need every bike to have a tag or something in it that you can identify it. And then you need to have something, monitoring those age, which we can do. That's technologically completely possible.
Okay.
So that's what I would suggest rather than something that's just totally not going to go anywhere.
Okay. Thank you all. All right. What do you think about a letter?
Well, I'm curious, just curious when we go for the letter, but how many people actually, there was a lot of us who said we didn't like the bill, just on an up-down vote. If we just did a straw poll on the town, because I think there's a majority of us who didn't like
it was mostly indicated that there were issues, but at the same time, there was a lot of questions about the bill, so that you couldn't really support the bill completely.
Well, I think we could
be against it.
But I think some of us can be against it completely. I'm just curious if we can do it.
How many people would be against the bill completely?
I'm sorry, is this Parks and
I think you're.
Yes, no.
No.
I'm not for this
The bill is going to be changed.
You all know where.
So they're just looking
As the bill is presented to us, is going to be changed. This is not the final version.
But this is.
And when it's understand it,
It's unanimous against the bill.
You know what, it was presented to us and we're voting on the bill as it was presented to us today, whether or not we would support that. It's either yes or no.
When it gets changed, it's a different story.
Right, okay, so how many people are against the bill? That's what I asked in the first.
That's currently
Everybody.
And Amy's back.
So you've got
And
everybody.
don't forget us on Zoom.
Yeah, we
You can see me too.
Six. And one.
Frederica, your hands up. Yeah, Frederica's hands up.
So how many afford?
Together with me?
But actually, if this is going to turn into a resolution or some kind of a vote that we're publishing, I would abstain.
No, we're not going to publish it, but just.
Off the record, the vote.
But it's just showing that.
It should be off the record. I
It's like
agree with you, Rose.
a consensus or a.
From my point of view, I think it was Frederica's idea to do a letter. Was it you, Frederica?
Yes.
I think that is probably the best way to handle it, because we can say everything that we recommend in a letter.
Good.
Which we can't really do in the same way in a resolution.
I would like the letter to represent that the majority of the people present did not like the bill. Because except
uncomfortable.
for
Yeah,
two
because
people.
of- Because of what
Right.
people said.
Right, but not to write it as a, so we were
But
neutral.
what was the actual vote, did you say?
You can't reach.
I didn't count.
I think there were
Only two people who liked the bill.
there would, yeah, didn't dislike it.
Okay, so 2 in
Yeah, yeah.
favor.
That's okay, we can.
And how many, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, 7, 8.
And the two of them there.
10,
And
and 3 online.
That, yeah, it's
And then
online, yeah.
12, 13, everybody, okay,
Or, Coral's,
13? Versus,
I hate to be the anti-letter person, but I'm always anti-letter because.
Who's there? Yeah,
Sorry.
Matt, you have to come stand here to talk. Who's that?
Matt Metzger.
Oh,
I'm
in the corner.
In the corner, hiding. So I hate to be the anti-letter person, but deliberative bodies speak through resolutions and not their letters. And I get it when it's an exigent, we really need to, but if we have an opinion, we should just put it in a reso.
I can't remember.
okay, all right. Next question. How many people prefer a letter?
it's a hard question. Depends on how the.
Amy.
You here or there. I would like a letter.
And Elizabeth Gilmore, can you lower your hand so we know how you're voting?
What, Ritu?
Yeah, I think it depends on content.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I agree with Coral, yeah.
Let me again say how I would see this. I think, one, we should recognize that the bill is what it's trying to do, okay? What it's trying to do is make it more harmonious and safer for people in parks.
Bravo.
Then we talk about, but there are many things that the bill doesn't cover.
Right.
Enumerate.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the idea of our resolution would be that our city council is gonna see this. Our city council members should see this, and they should see that Community Board 2 thinks, and I'm being presumptuous here, that the bill, while we recognize that there are a lot of issues with enforcement bikes and all, the bill does not address this, and it is redundant and is unnecessary in our district.
Bravo.
I think the city council needs to see that as a resolution.
That's a good one.
Recognize a lot of issues.
Have fun walking in the park, guys, when bicycles through the head.
One of the prime sponsors of this is one of our council members.
We know that. We
I'm sure I
like it.
We have one of our council members sponsored.
And the other two are not.
Well, there's a whole host of them.
No, yeah, but we all read the legislation. It was.
I'm just saying it's a
yeah.
whole host of sponsors.
Well,
Doesn't change our
that doesn't
opinion.
really change. I mean, one of our council members supports the bill.
That's
Is
not-
one of the sponsors, okay? Two of them have not come out in favor or against.
Yeah. Point through commentary, even if he does support it, that the language could go in a better direction, and I think that that's what Frederica's point was.
Yeah, that's what she's trying
In
to
the beginning, because the bill is still open to changing.
Yeah, Rosie.
Very raw.
You feel that it should be a resolution or a
I'm just
letter?
saying, if we want to try to get it better.
It should be a letter, not a resolution. If we want.
I wanted the other.
If we want to improve the product here, which is this bill, if we write her a letter and tell her what we find is wrong with the bill, and I understand all of your concerns, but I think other people have concerns regarding safety.
Okay.
But the majority of us do not like this bill. Like that's.
As
what's
presented,
Yes,
as-
but I
It's like I don't have to
feel we
accept
would
your
have to
ideas.
Point
Yeah.
out the issues of what were the concerns and what are the other, in other words, the counter concerns.
Right.
Why why this bill was done, okay? For safety, for harmony in the park, whatever it is, what Palladino said. And the other is what the committee found lacking, period.
Okay.
And are we gonna
that
pass a
still needs to be
resolution
addressed.
saying
Now,
there?
the question is, shall we do this in a letter or a resolution?
I think we should do a resolution.
Resolution.
I could see it as.
Yeah, we resolve that we don't.
Concept of a letter is
Sweet, but not a.
yeah, no, I don't even think that
Yeah.
should be a discussion at future
It's
meetings.
not effective.
Write a letter.
Everybody is feeling that way, then we'll do a
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah, like,
But we
I
can
don't know
do it.
when this even became a
All right,
thing.
let me move on.
Yes.
Let Rich
Thank you.
know.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for waiting. Everyone who's waited so long.
My
Yes.
thought is, we do talk about what Vicky Palladino spoke of, which are concerns. Okay. Concerns being parks are places for people to relax and not worry about safety. Okay, period. I mean, there are other things too, she said. And, but there is this, we know this is not fleshed out. No issues concerning enforcement,
Yeah.
whatever.
Right. I got it. I got a lot of notes and we have the transcript.
And, therefore, we cannot support the bill. And we recommend that a much broader look be taken. How's that?
Okay.
I would just say we just don't support the bill, therefore.
Yeah, we don't support the bill.
Support the bill.
Sure.
And we can have another discussion
I
about.
think one of the most important things that we have to add to whatever resolution letter, whatever you want to do, is that not all parks are made the
Yeah, right.
same.
I agree with that.
That's the
Right.
most important
Yes, I
thing.
had that down
Washington
before.
Square Park is not a park where you should be riding scooters, bicycles, or anything.
It's already banned there.
It's already
It
a
doesn't
law.
matter. I understand, but how many laws are there on the books? Let me finish. How many laws are there on the books
Yes, I understand.
that are already laws, people disobey them?
Right, we should
And they
enforce
get
what's
another
on the
law
book.
that.
I agree with you.
Ask me.
we do.
I'm in the housing
We
industry,
agree.
right?
We agree.
We get a
Okay,
lot of
so we have
laws
to say
on top of
also
the law.
that there are many regulations already
That needs to be
Right.
enforced.
All right, thanks.
Saturday.
Gene, we all agree hitmen shouldn't be able to ride bikes through.
regulations already.
No, I'm actually.
Okay, I may ask.
It wasn't a city bike.
It wasn't a city bike.
No, I understand that.
Richard
Do you
in
want-
particular.
oh,
Richard, can you
your
send
club
me that
is-
great chart?
But do you
Can
need?
you email me
Yeah,
that
right.
great chart?
Guys, thanks
bring an
for,
apron? Want me to bring an
Let's
apron?
go to parks. Yeah, all right, we,
Parks has two more items on its agenda. Can we wrap this up?
yes, correct.
There are two committees,
Yeah,
transportation and parks.
I get it, but I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody who said
Regulations.
thanks.
2 hours. It'd be really great if you could give us 5 minutes to listen to what we're talking.
Okay.
Yeah, we will, we will,
This is
right.
from Zoom, but I
You mean like a public session it's talking about?
They're here for another
We're on the
item.
transportation.
The other item.
Because we're not on the parks.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm just saying, it's a little rude to walk out when everybody's trying to be a part of the thing. Keep going, that's all right.
No.
I know, everyone's here for a thing. We're all here for a thing.
Okay, enough.
All right, okay, yeah, we're running out.
What's the thing?
I get it, I get it.
I don't think you do.
I do, I absolutely.
Please, can you take it? Come on, we gotta move on. Is anybody logged in? I want to make sure Will, is anybody on?
I got it.
All right, can you get Will?
I sure can.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's
then-
about Pep.
Yeah, so Will Marston
Here it is,
is
it's
on.
about Pep.
Will is
Good luck.
is not here. He's away out of town because of a death in the family, but he's joined us via Zoom,
That's great.
which is, it's not great that there was a death in the family.
No, no, no. No,
I'm
it's
kidding, yeah. No,
dedication.
Will is doing this, yes.
Very dedicated.
Right. So Will, are you there? There are 3 things, really 2 and then 1 question at the end. There is something that has to be discussed because it's of the timing. That is the installation of a artwork in the park that we want to hear about quickly from Will. Then there was a response to a request from our last meeting, which was about enforcement of the rule against enforcement of a rule that has been blocking some artists from setting up and around the fountain. We'll get into the description. And then there's an old question about Jefferson Market Garden, which I got an answer from Steve on, which I will deliver at the very end. So please let me introduce Will. I think everyone knows Will. He is both the administrator of Washington Square Park. He's also he's also on the, or what is it? The executive chair of the Washington Square Park Conservancy.
Yeah, executive director of the Washington Square Park.
Director, I'm sorry, yeah. So,
Sorry.
yeah, it's 8:12. We've been here for an hour and 45 minutes, but I want to give you the time, Will. And again, I really appreciate you dialing in under the circumstances. So please let me turn it over to you now.
No, I appreciate that, and I'm largely gonna actually be relying on my colleagues that have joined me here tonight. So if you can see either Ash Cortez or Elizabeth Masella in the attendee list. They're from our Art and Antiquities Division. They'll briefly talk about the public art project that's going into the park in January.
I think you need to elevate them.
Yep, we're doing it right now. Yep, they should be up now. Yes, they're joining as panelists. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Hi, all. I'm Elizabeth Masella. I'm the Senior Public Art Coordinator at NYC Parks, and I'm just going to start off with a very, very brief overview of the Art in the Parks program. I believe it's been a while since we've been to CB2, but just so you have some information about what we do, turn it over to my colleague Ash Cortez to talk about the artwork in particular, and we also have the artist Ryan Vanderhout here. I don't know if he can also be added as a panelist for this agenda item. I believe we each have some visuals, but I will go ahead and start with my presentation. Just again, very, very general overview of the Art in the Parks program at NYC Parks. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we see it.
Great. So the Art in the Parks program has been around since 1967. We bring contemporary public artworks to the city's parks, making us one of the world's largest open air galleries. We've collaborated with arts organizations and artists to produce over 3,000 public artworks by 1,500 notable and emerging artists in more than 200 parks. We are a very small staff of 2, myself and Ash, who you'll hear from shortly. We program an average of 60 to 80 new exhibitions in parks every year throughout the 5 boroughs. Any kind of information you need on either our program or our permanent art collection can be found on our website at nyc.gov/parks/art. You can see how to apply to exhibit your sculpture or create a mural in a park, and you can also see what we currently have on view at any given time. Who we work with a really wide variety of arts programmers, public art nonprofits, parks partners like the Washington Square Park Conservancy, other park-specific park groups, business improvement districts, community organizations, commercial galleries, cultural institutions, and independent artists. Just to give you a sense of the breadth of our program and the various types of works we do, I'm just going to flip through a few slides just to show you, some recent projects from the last 5 or so years, just showing that public art can be many different things. It's not just monumental sculpture made out of bronze. And not all parks are the same also. So we have some really interesting examples of different parks here. We do a lot of 2-dimensional artworks on fences. And then we have a smaller mural program. Art in the Parks guidelines. You can always check our website for more information. But generally speaking, all projects permitted by our office are installations that are generally on view for 2 weeks up to 1 year, though typically in the range of 3 to 6 months. Anything that's shorter duration, like a 1-day event or a performance or anything like that, would just go through special events. We are really permitting stationary artworks on view for long durations, though not permanent. Temporary public art proposals are accepted on a rolling basis. We have an open application process, but we do recommend that proposals are submitted at least 6 months in advance to allow ample time for review. Our mural guidelines are pretty similar. We still ask for a 6-month advance notice. We do permit murals for 1 year, but after 1 year, artists should waive their rights to the artwork. However, as long as the murals are looking good and in good condition, we often leave them. Many murals that have been done years ago are still on view. And then there's just some restrictions on the kind of spaces that we don't permit murals on: handball court walls, park buildings, and historic structures. With regards to Washington Square Park, Will and I met several years ago to discuss a way in which more temporary sculpture could be exhibited in the park, while being respectful to the many other things that happen in the park. Also, it is a very heavily used park. We don't want to, we looked at really lesser utilized spaces, and I'll share a map. But there is a Washington Square Park Public Art Committee. They review the proposals for the park and then recommend them to us. We don't allow any direct anchoring in the park to avoid damaging the hardscape. So artworks do have a minimum weight restriction. Exhibitions will only be permitted through the months of November through April for a duration of 2 to 4 months. The locations that we identified are here. They're outside of the core of the park. Several of them are on the edges of the park, in areas that there's a little bit less activity. Through our program, also, exhibitors are responsible for all aspects of the installation. That includes fabrication, material costs, transport, rigging, engineering drawings, site restoration, maintenance, general liability insurance, and a security deposit to ensure that they come back and get the artwork at the end. If you have any questions about temporary sculpture in parks or murals, our contact information is here. As always, check our website. We have a wealth of information there. But that's just a general overview of the Art in the Parks program. I'll turn it over to my colleague Ash Cortez to speak about the artwork that we're going to present this evening. And then the artist will speak briefly about his work as well.
Thank you. Thanks for waiting to present. Thanks.
Hi, let me just share my screen. Can you all see that?
No, not yet. Now it is, yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So the artwork is titled To Reflect Everything by artist Ryan Vanderhout. Oh, sorry, guys. There we go. Ryan is a Canadian interdisciplinary artist based in New York. The work will be on view in Washington Square Park from January 10th to April 25th, 2025. This is the location within the park. This kind of similar to the same map that Elizabeth just shared. It'll be in the plaza east of the Garibaldi Monument. This is the same plaza. Construction and installation details. Dimensions, the piece is 7 feet wide by 7 feet deep by 10 feet high. Materials, the base is painted steel. It's coated with an anti-graffiti coating. It's got a central dome, which is made of fiberglass, and then all of the mirrored panels are attached to that fiberglass dome. It's important to note that the mirror panels are actually polished stainless steel. The weight is 1,500 pounds, so it's above the minimum weight requirement. So it will sit flat on the ground. It won't anchor into pavers. It won't damage any surfaces. And the total combined weight plus the outrigger legs provide enough balance and support in case of climbing or any type of tampering. I will now hand it over to Ryan. Ryan, sorry.
Mirrors.
That thing is.
Ryan, you might be muted if you're trying to speak.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Rob.
Oh, here we are. Better?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to try to be very quick because I know there's a lot of other people waiting to speak, but thank you so much for having me. And I'm very excited to have my work on display in your community. The work To Reflect Everything is a recreation of a satellite from 1986 that is currently in orbit. It closely resembles a disco ball. It was originally displayed in Toronto at the Toronto Sculpture Garden. What it does is it kind of reflects everything. It acts much like a disco ball in that it is this very large optical device that takes in everything around it and acts in a very kind of active way as an artwork, taking in the people, but kind of fracturing it and breaking up the viewer. So often you find that you disappear within the work when you're expecting to see yourself, or you might see yourself over there, over here. Really thinking about the queer history of the park, and this work was based on a book, Cruising Utopia, that talks about this, as well as the reflective notions of the disco ball. I just want to share the original object. This is the satellite that is currently in orbit. It was recreated to scale with some modifications. This is myself and my friends building it in the Brooklyn Army Terminal about a year ago, and a show that I currently have up just to see kind of how I continue to work with the kind of breaking up of the body and transformation of kind of identity through
through photography, very much thinking about this as a photographic optical device. And yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, let's open it up to questions. We start with board members. With Arnie, Shirley.
Well, I have one question about this and just about the program. Did you say where it is going to be located? What's the exact location?
They show inside, eastern side of the park.
The eastern side,
Next
oh,
to-
okay,
Garibaldi, there's a plaza.
yeah, okay, right. And the other thing is about the program criteria. Did you mention criteria?
For the Art in the Parks program. So generally speaking, it's open to all who want to exhibit sculpture in the park. We do have, our mission requirements, what we're really looking for with sculpture in terms of criteria is safety, durability. Is this something that is able to be displayed outdoors in a safe manner that will be able to withstand the different weather that we have here, the human interaction, et cetera, and that it won't, impact regular park usage. We wouldn't put it in the middle of like a soccer field or something like that. And we also just want to make sure, that the artists, what they're proposing, that they are able to produce what it is that they're proposing. So, a modest amount of experience, but we've certainly done a number of projects with community groups, with school groups. It's a real variety. You don't need to be like a well-known, blue chip artist to exhibit with our program.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else?
Carl.
All right, I'm just looking in the room first. Okay, Coral, you see your hand up?
Yeah, hi Elizabeth. It's great to see you. It's been a while. I just wanted to ask if there was some way that you and the artist could put together like a brief that could be sent out to the schools in CB2, both private and public, just to be aware that this is there. Because I've realized that sometimes these wonderful things go up and there's sort of not as much awareness of this happening in groups that might benefit in our community. So we can certainly do that on the CB2 site, but it would probably be excellent if it could actually go out proactively to the schools. And I'm not sure if you have any sort of like any plans for sort of media or dissemination to raise broader awareness in our community that this is happening besides this meeting.
I think we would love your assistance. And we're always like appreciate, community boards and community partners in spreading the word, and we can share a brief with the community board for you all to share. I think I don't want to speak for Ash and for Ryan, but I think it's always great that we could get the word out.
Yeah, and maybe a QR code that has the information, or maybe even an interview with the artist would be super cool.
But if you share the brief, I'll make sure it gets in the notes from the meeting. The stuff that was on the slide too about how long it'll be there and the wait. I like the wait.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Coral, we're going to do what we can locally as well to spread the word through our various social channels.
Fabulous. I just don't want anyone to miss it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And before we move on, any other questions from people in the room who are not members of the community board? And I'm sorry, Mark, I'm really useless today.
It's Coral.
It was Coral. All right, I see it.
Yeah, we got one more.
There was another question I get. Just I things that are putting in the comments.
Rowland.
Oh, Jeffrey, yeah, I think Jeffrey, did you want to comment on this? I saw your comment come up that I think you were complimenting the presenters on being concise. Did you have something more than that?
Hi. Sorry, when you elevate me to a panelist, it completely crashes and I have to come back again. I had just a question about the placement of the area that you've decided to put it. Looks to me like the same area that is used in the summertime for salsa dancing. And there's usually a big crowd there. And I'm thinking, is this going to use up some of that space? Or is it going to be at a different time of year?
It's
unclear.
It's a two-part answer, Jeffrey. The salsa socials happen in Garibaldi Plaza, and this location is in the mini plaza to the east of that space, so it's not in the same space. And then one of the ways that we structured this was to only be available from November through April, so it actually avoids the busier part of the park season.
Fine. Thank you very much. That answers my question.
Good answer, but if it was there, it would, and you look the right way, it would look like there were even more people. That's all. Thank you for the joke. All right. Okay, anything else? Anybody else want to comment?
They desperately want to get to the next item.
Yeah, but did anybody, has anybody seen the Luna thing? No. All right, never mind. All right, okay, go, okay, next one.
Thank you, Ash. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes, thanks, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan. Wonderful piece.
And we will write.
And thank you, Ryan. Yes, absolutely.
Everyone, we'll do it at the business session, but all right, let me just set up. I'm sorry, I didn't do a good job in the intro. Last meeting, which was in November, we actually talked about a program called Vital Parks for All, but at the end, an attendee asked an unrelated question. He posed it to Mr. Morrison. He said, quote, "I've been an artist in Washington Square Park for nearly a decade. Up until a month ago, I've shown my work in the same space 4 days a week without any problem or incident. On September 27th, 8 PEP officers with 6 police officers came in and evicted every artist, and that's been the case every day since." He's saying that every artist has been evicted for 40 days at that point.
70 now.
Yeah, and Rich, to that point, and I think I said it last week, I was going to have representatives from Parks Enforcement here to discuss this topic. So I believe there should be Inspector Thompson, Cynthia Thompson should be elevated, as well as Konstantin Mitsotakis, if he's there. Cynthia would also know if there are others from the Parks Enforcement team.
Tompkins, who's the other one?
Who's Cynthia and who else?
I see him here, C. Mitsotakis, who's a director in Parks Enforcement, and Cynthia Thompson is a deputy inspector.
Okay, while you're arranging that, I feel a need to just communicate one more thing, and that was that in June of 2023, this committee passed a resolution at a meeting, June 2023, where in a resolution, we asked, I'm looking for it here, we asked that as part of the status update that Will did, we asked that the title of it was a resolution requesting consistent and complete enforcement of rules in Washington Square Park. So we are on record. Last time we referred to this, we said that we resolved that the Parks and Recreation Department work with the local police department to find ways to control what we were saying, disturbing and dangerous activities, including stronger and more consistent enforcement of existing park rules, while working with CB2 and park users to develop approaches tailored to the specific needs of the park, and that the Parks Department review its current policies and consider changes that would reduce activities that endanger the safety of visitors park, particular senior citizens. So that was it. Last time we opined on this.
When was it?
June of 2023.
Was there an impetus for the resolution?
Yeah, it was the Department of Parks and Recreation periodic Washington Square Park status updates.
Okay.
And about 70 people attended the meeting. Will presented it. I should have done printouts, and the conversation went into that. And so we said, let's pass the resolution. Will did not ask for the resolution. It came out of the conversation. The last one before that, we go back to 2013, we had a resolution. But okay, I'm sorry. That was my setup. I was really just giving Mark time to get everybody on.
No, I appreciate that. And I'm going to pass it off to Deputy Inspector Thompson, who I believe I see on video now.
And then we'll open it to questions, and then we'll open it to comments and questions.
Yes, hi, my name is Cynthia Thompson. I am the Park Enforcement Patrol Inspector that oversees the overall park enforcement program. Also, I have one with me is the Director of Citywide Operations, which is Konstantin Mitsotakis. So we are here today just to understand and hear the concerns of what artists have regarding Washington Square Park. Just note that we look to try to work with everyone, come to a resolution that everyone understands, because the idea is that we want to work together. So what it is that there has been there has been no change. So there's no change that took place. It's just that we've been enforcing these rules. These rules has been in effect since 2010. Then in 2012, it stopped just to review and see how things work for the artists, for performing artists and stuff like that. And since 2013, these rules has been in effect. So they have not changed. We have to abide by the rules. We look to go out to educate. We don't look to issue summonses only if we really have to. But the whole idea is to work with patrons in the park and educate them and let them understand what those rules are in the park. We have officers there every day, 7 days a week, who know these rules, who will sit and work and explain. Some of the times we do have a little difficulty where people don't want to abide by the rules, and these rules are not new. These rules can be found on the internet. So people can look up the rules that are being told to them, and they can find them on the New York City Parks website. So like I said, we're here today just to hear any questions and concerns, and I hope I can address any of those concerns. And if whatever I can't address today, I'm willing to take it back and do research and come back with some responses.
Okay, Will, is it okay? Do you want to add anything before I open it up?
No, look, the Parks Enforcement has their own chain of command, and I wanted to bring the folks who are truly, in that chain of command here for this conversation. So I think the artists have been very patient, and we should get to their questions.
Yeah, well, let me today at the meeting today, I mean, yes, and all of you have been as well. Let me just ask, so just to clarify for the notes, at the last meeting, it was said that I believe September 27th, it appeared that enforcement had changed. You're saying that's not the case?
Is that for me or Director Thompson?
Director Thompson, I'm sorry, I should have clarified. Yeah. Are you saying on September 27th, there wasn't a change?
There's no change in the rules. We enforcing the rules as they always been on the books since 2013.
Okay, so clearly no change in the rules and no change in the directive given to the officers, of actually enforcing the rules in a more stringent way or a more consistent and complete way.
No.
All right, any board members? Matt.
And I apologize. Is it Director Thompson or Deputy Inspector Thompson?
Inspector Thompson.
Inspector Thompson, I apologize.
That's okay.
That's
okay.
Inspector Thompson, so not that you disagree with this, but I generally assume that when large groups of people show up at our meetings saying that there's been a change and they haven't historically been coming to our meetings, that generally they are telling the truth. I guess my question is, how do I explain just to myself why we have about 15 people here saying that there's been a change? And I take you at your word as well, but how do I make that square a square?
Well, I can tell you the bottom line is that there's been a lot of people occupying a lot of spaces, and we have to follow the rules and regulations there. And the thing is that we can't obstruct pathways. People can't block fountains and monuments and stuff like that. So those are the things that was being enforced. So I'm not sure what it is that people feel that changed.
So I'll let everybody speak for themselves, but my understanding is that on day 0, there were lots of people and musicians, not people, but lots of people, artists, thank you. There were a lot of artists doing their art in Washington Square Park. And then one day later, PEP officers, probably at the direction of their sergeant, who's probably at the direction of their lieutenant, who's probably at the direction of somebody above them, inspector, instructed them to clear them out. And they did so as part of their job. And I don't fault them, but how do we make sense of all of this?
Right, but I can tell you, because with the limited resources that we have, there's been a lot of different things that being addressed. So maybe a lot of the focus may not have been on that. Doesn't mean they was not addressing it, but there's been other things going on in the park, a lot of quality of life, skateboarding, bicycles, drug activity that we work with NYPD. So there's been a lot of moving parts on what we've been addressing in the park. So that's maybe what they saw up until the time that they now started just putting more effort onto addressing these concerns.
Any other?
I have one quick question.
Yes, Bill.
I want to hear what our community has to say, Inspector, but do you have a enforcement priority currently? There's a lot of possible rules in the letter of the law being broken in Washington Square Park. I've never purchased cannabis from the vendors. I assume they are not licensed vendors from the cannabis program, for example. But you've named some other things as well. Is there a priority given to the officers as currently of how they should, which rule breaking should they investigate first before others? Thanks for clarifying.
Well, no, as they seeing the concerns, they should be addressing the concerns. It's not really a priority. What they should be addressing is as they are seeing it. But because, like I said, because of limited staffing, it may be that they just can't get to every situation at one time.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
I'm gonna ask.
Something just occurred to me. We were talking about posting rules before. So are those rules posted for people to see? Did you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Will, can you answer the question about the signs posted?
Yeah, I mean, surely you're specifically talking about the expressive matter vending rules.
The rules about artists, the rules about, say, cats.
Skateboards, anything in the.
Anything of that nature, I guess.
Sure. So
interference with access, whatever.
Walkways, fountains, monuments.
Yeah. So there's consolidated rule signs at the entrance to every park, not just Washington Square, but at every entrance to Washington Square Park, there's a set of consolidated rule signs. And then based on previous meetings on different topics with the community board, we also have additional signs that call out specifically kind of to the last topic, no skateboarding, bicycling, or scootering in the park. When it comes to expressive matter vending rules, there are no signs in the park because the Parks Department does not have a standard sign for that. It's a conversation I'm having with other parts of the division to try to help clarify things for this community. But they are all available on our website, and the agency has also created an expressive matter vending FAQ document that is available as well on the website because there are a lot of nuances to those rules, and it was an attempt to try to condense them and create an FAQ.
There are no, you said there are no signs specific to art.
The artists.
Yeah. What was it, artist? What was
expressive matter vending is what is the term.
Yeah, I want to make sure I got that. Expressive matter, right?
But it is actually, you know, I did want to share something in this vein as another resource to help artists in the park that we've been working on at the Parks Department that I actually have thankfully gotten everything in a row to be able to share at this meeting. So we have actually, you know, a portion of the rules in the park that specifically deal with tables deal with spatial rules. And the onus is on anybody who wants to do this to go out and measure the various, you know, parts of the park to figure out these spots. And so we took the initiative to, just for Washington Square Park, actually create a map where we've gone out and measured and done all the rules. So I'm going to share that map here tonight. I'm going to share my screen in a moment, and that's going to get added to the FAQ document, which also includes all of the medallion locations for other parks in the city, such as Central Park, Union, the High Line, and I believe one more that's escaping me at the moment, so that resource too is available to anybody who wishes to come and display their art under the expressive matter vending laws with a table. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick. And
you follow what he's saying? They're measuring, you know, you got to be X feet from the monument, X feet from
about where they can be placed.
And that, if you map that out or taped it off, you'd see.
Right. Two of those spot block major entrances that they're saying are okay. That's just.
If you want, let me get through this.
I'm sorry.
Then you can comment.
Yeah. And just to provide clarity, this is not making any new rules. This is not changing anything. This is actually going out with a measuring tape and measuring everything based on the rules as they are written and as the inspector said, have been written on the books since 2013. So this is purely an informational, again, educational document that will be available to anyone who wants to come and do this in the park, to actually show, to do the work for anyone who wants to come do this at this location. So again, it's a resource. I'm happy to leave it up for this conversation if you'd like, or I can also relinquish my screen and it will be available online. And I can
can you just give us the key? Can you just give us the key that, yeah, please send along, but the key, what are we looking at? Is it the?
Sure. So it's essentially a map of the park, and then all the red dots are the locations where you can just use a table in the case of selling your items such as painting, prints, photos, and reading materials, or performing for a donation, including juggling, dancing, and music.
Okay, music's there too, okay. The red dots were, yeah, I didn't see those, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, here, I mean, I can zoom in, it's a little.
Yeah, I didn't, yeah.
I would encourage us to try and get to public comment.
Yeah, I'm trying to set it up.
Well, I'm assuming those aren't to scale for square footage, correct?
Correct, it's representational.
So, roughly how big are the areas so like could 2 tables fit per one red dot? Is it one table?
Usually one table, because there's another part of the rules and regulations that specifies the size of the tables that's allowed.
If you don't have a table, can you do it anywhere?
If these are still the spots that have been highlighted for selling items or performing.
And I'm so sorry, is it selling items or performing for a donation, or is it selling items or performing?
For a donation.
Okay, so if you're just performing for not a donation, you're not covered, you can do that anywhere.
I would have to get back to our legal team to ask that question, because I don't know.
Good question.
You don't want to laugh. Let me make it clear.
No, I think they're laughing at them.
You laugh, you're really pissing me off.
I'm already pissed off because they're lying about all this.
Yes, so I went to great lengths to try to get you a hearing. And I've got him dialing in from far, and I've got people on the line here trying to answer your question. And so when you laugh, you're making me angry.
Well, I appreciate that.
All right,
good. Now let me turn it over to you, and hopefully you can be civil in your comments. Otherwise, I will end the meeting. And if you laugh, I'm going to take that as not civil. Okay? You have your hand up over there, ma'am.
Want me to take time?
Yes, 2 minutes.
Okay, so my question is, you're saying that there's no change in the park rules, but I do personally observe the change in the park rules, specifically about the distancing rules. So my question is about that. So I am quoting the current park rules, which I'm pulling up, which is on the website of the Parks Department. And it says, it is important to reiterate that these proximity restrictions, which include a prohibition on vending within 50 feet of a monument or within 5 feet of park furniture, only apply to vendors using a display table to sell items. So me personally being a street performer, mostly in Washington Square Park, I am doing the dance performances, and you showed the map with like little red dots, and it says including the dancing for donations, and it is a clear change to me. So how would you explain that change with saying that there's no change since September?
Well, as mentioned before, there is really no change. Those rules has been the same as they were. There's no change whatsoever. It's just now there's more clarification, just that way so you guys can be aware on where that you can set up, perform, or whatever the case may be, so there's no park obstruction and other people can utilize the park.
So like the same park rule says that, it's the same section saying because performers do not typically use display tables, the rules should not impact the majority of performers and buskers in parks without designated vending spots.
Okay.
So I still don't understand why you are saying that there's no change when I see clearly the change in the language. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it seems that the setting up the tables is,
I am not using the tables.
understood,
again.
yeah. That seems, yeah.
So
I don't want to restate the question, but tell me if it's wrong, but do you guys understand the question?
Yes, I understand the question.
Okay, good. All right. Can you answer it then, Inspector? I think if the question was, even though she's not setting up a table, she's still, you're saying that she still has to adhere to where she performs, right?
Yes, she still have to adhere to the designated areas, yeah.
And you're saying that that is a change from what used
that
to be.
is not what it's written.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, please restate that, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's saying that that's not how it's stated in the rule.
From the direct quote from the website of the Parks Department.
Right, I'm sorry, that's what I heard. So she's saying that performers, so could you read that beginning again? It was very specific. I think you were right.
So there are distance rules, and then after stating all that, it is important to reiterate that these proximity restrictions, which include a prohibition on vending within 50 feet of a monument or within 5 feet of park furniture, only, this is actually like the only part is capitalized in bold, only apply to vendors using a display table to sell items. Because performers do not typically use display tables, the rules should not impact the majority of performers and buskers in parks without designated vending spots. Hope you.
I did.
Very specific.
Yeah, that's Inspector.
Yes, and I heard what she said, and I'm gonna look into that and I'll get a response back.
Yeah, that seems to be the crux of the issue. I think if they can perform in areas that are not represented by the red circles, then it seems that they have more flexibility. And perhaps the PEP officers.
Saying that it doesn't apply.
Yeah, I mean, the way I hear that, it doesn't apply. It
says
the PEP officers shouldn't be moving them along or if, just because they're not in the red circles, if they're performers. That's how I hear it. Do you guys agree?
Seems quite
Yeah.
specific.
All right, so let's get, Inspector Thompson, if you can get clarification on that.
I will.
And Will, do you disagree? Is that?
I think it's worth Inspector Thompson getting clarity on that piece. All I would add is that for example, Konami, I see you in the park all the time. If a parks enforcement officer is enforcing another rule, like blocking a pathway or some other thing that has nothing to do with expressive matter vending, they still have that ability. And so while I think that's one facet of what's going on here, but I look forward to Inspector Thompson looking into the issue and reporting back to this forum.
Okay, well, okay, that's good. I think we've got some progress. Yeah, before we move along, I think, let me just prep you guys before I ask Janine the question. I think there's been some reference in the comments about a Supreme Court judgment. So can I ask you about that? But first, Janine, did you have a question?
Oops, my question is more for the inspector, and I'm going to sort of add on to Matt Metzer's question. I'm in the park almost daily. I go there very early, walking my dogs, so it's usually there's not a lot of buskers out. But you talked about access to places of the park, which is the alleged rationale for limiting. I'm going to say the area where I feel I have the least access is on the whole north west perimeter, where it is filled with illegal activities, drug users, drug dealers, and I know you missed the previous people about concerned about bikes in the parks, but that is activity that is dangerous and unsafe, and I still walk through there, sometimes even take pictures. But I guess there's a lot of rules that aren't being enforced in Washington Square Park. can you share how you prioritize those rules?
Here we go.
Okay, like was mentioned before, as we see these conditions arise, as we address them, it's not that what we prioritize. And the northwest corner, we have been working jointly with NYPD, DHS, DOHMH, and other agencies just to address concerns over at the northwest corner. So if you've been coming to that park regularly, you should have seen the different agencies plus the PEP officers out there addressing the concerns in that particular location.
Yeah, but I haven't seen any improvement. And so I guess if I know that there are limited PEP resources, my personal preference is that they focus on safety related activities, which, walking through and seeing people make a drug deal does not make me feel particularly safe. When they've had so many drugs that they're mostly passed out, I know they're really not incapacitated, but I think I'm just going to say that in terms of prioritizing how PEP resources are, I would like to see them on enforcing the laws that most impact people's safety and health. And there's no smoking in parks. So every single person who's smoking weed is violating stuff. Is that being enforced? I just feel like the artists do not impact my safety in any way or my enjoyment of the park, unless it's amplified sound.
Right. Well, you may say that, but doesn't mean that other people may feel that way. You can't obstruct the whole entire park. It has to be access for people to enjoy the park, access areas. So it does matter where people need to be placed. We shouldn't have to have people come and tell vendors they have to move because they need to have access to a particular location. So it has to be accessible throughout the park. So that's the purpose of the rules. And the PEP officers do the best what they can. They do focus on the rules in the park. And when you spoke about the drugs activities over there, that is an NYPD issue. We do not specialize in drug activity, but we do assist to try to prevent these issues happening in those locations.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but which rules do you enforce? Do you enforce the no smoking rule?
We enforce the no smoking rule.
Do you enforce the no biking rule?
We enforce the no biking rule. All the park rules and regulations is what it is that those officers can and do and enforce.
Okay, let me turn it over to anybody else who's here who'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, my name is Eric Cook. I was the gentleman who was at the original meeting last month. First, allow me to apologize to anybody who was hurt or offended by my outburst earlier. I did not mean that in that way. The reason why I had that reaction is because I'm tired of being lied to. I have been in the park for over 9 years, or coming on 9 years now. I have not had any problem with being set up in the Fountain Circle for any of those days up until September 20th, 2024, starting at noon, when the police and the Rangers evicted artists, buskers, musicians, a woman asking if they can give you advice. They were all evicted from the Fountain Circle. The Fountain Circle, by rules, as been stated, is no place for art in Washington Square Park. I have been told by the PEP officers that there is no active space available for arts in Washington Square Park. I have it on video. It's posted on my Instagram. You are welcome to see it. I am outraged that I keep being told that there has been no change of enforcement, where if you look at any artist or any visitor's page from before September 27th and after September 27th, you will see a marked change. Artists have been tolerated, if not allowed, in the Fountain Circle for as long as I've been going, which is coming on a decade. To tell me now that there has been no change of enforcement on the rules, I believe that the rules haven't been changed, but the enforcement has most definitely been changed. And I can't even get past talking about anything else but the fact that it is an ongoing lie to say that it hasn't been changed. I'm not saying that the inspector is lying to me. She may be misinformed, but somebody is sending a message that is a lie about what has happened since September 27th.
But let me just clarify. you believe that the rules have not been changed.
I know the rules haven't been changed. I've been educating PEP officers for a decade about the rules. For the last 2 years, I've been predicting that the Fountain Circle will have been ejected and getting out because police officers, PEP officers, and folks on staff in the park have told me that the way it's going now is that their belief is, and this was told me by a lieutenant of police officer last year, the belief is that artists and buskers in the park are violating everyone else's First Amendment rule or ability to use the park in their way. So thus, when we hear Inspector Thompson say that artists are obstructing the park from other people using the park, I say artists are people using the park.
Okay. Rich, can I ask? I just want to clarify. So are you suggesting that the rules should be changed?
I'm suggesting we should have a dialogue about how people use this park and how to appropriately enforce people who are actively using it and have used it for a decade. This is not an easy issue. I've waited 3 years to have 2 minutes to speak last month, and now it's expanded into this. I've actively asked Will Morrison, I've asked folks who work with parks, can we not have an active dialogue with a group of artists and a group of folks on staff in the city and talk about how the park is used? How do we equitably apply that to everybody who wants to use it without having to impose enforcement rules that are unfair to people who just want to express themselves in the public?
Rich, do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Inspector, and I apologize for this question. Do you feel that you're in a good position to assure us that no one in your chain of command below you has changed enforcement priorities?
Yes, but what I said before was they've been addressing other concerns, other issues. So I noted that they may have turned their focus to that, but that rule has never changed. That rule has always been the same since 2013. But there's various issues, I said, and I also noted that it's limited of staffing. So they've been dealing with different things and different issues that arises in the park, like the northwest corner that was mentioned. That's been a big concern that we focus our efforts over there as well.
And I certainly appreciate that, Inspector, but at some point somebody has to say, okay, and now we're done with this, and now we're going to turn to that. And I guess all the people here are complaining about the turn to that. And it is, with all due respect, because I really appreciate you coming, and I really appreciate you coming late. It does feel a little incongruous what the position of parks is or parks enforcement is, and certainly what everybody here is reporting.
No, and I hear you and I understand clearly, but I can't express anymore that there's other things that's going on with a limited staffing. So they don't always get to certain situations because there's things that's happening in that park. That park is a very busy park. There's a lot of issues, a lot of concerns that the staff address, and it's just not enough staff addressing it. But we can't ignore all these conditions that's happening there either. It doesn't mean that because people are vending with tables in the fountain that it's okay. I mentioned that these rules are on the internet. You can look at the rules on the internet. That's the rules that they're enforcing.
Yeah, is it possible, and this is a leading question, so I'm going to say, is it possible that there are you have the PEP officers have concerns about the tables that are being used to sell other things, and so in an attempt to clean that up, the ones that were closer to what was traditional artistic expression are being sort of caught up in that?
No, that's just part of it. At one part of the season, there was issues of people selling things that they wasn't supposed to sell, so that was addressed. But still, we can't exclude that people are set up in places where they're not allowed to set up at.
Yeah, I understand.
And the officers are sitting and designating people. They're not necessarily just saying, you got to go. If there's spaces, they will designate, they will tell them where is it that they can go and set up their setup.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask if we can hear from anyone? I'm curious if there's additional issues besides the performance, the physical performance. If there's vendors that also want to comment, perhaps.
Could I ask a question? Am I up here?
Yeah, go. let me have this one answered first. I think you're asking, are there categories of things?
Yeah, we heard from this performer first.
We have artists. Are there other, what would you call them? Other categories of
complaint,
of presentation?
Yeah, there are folks who come out as sort of a hybrid buskers who come out. There's Kyler's on here who spoke earlier.
Yes, right.
And he's a fortune teller, a mystic. There is a woman who's not, I don't know if she's out here or not, but she sits in the park with a sign that says, I'm happy to give you free advice for 2 bits. And that's a quarter. So she's been ejected out of the park. Poets who saw it fall, musicians also.
So musicians, yeah.
My biggest question is, if there's no change of enforcement, then how do you explain the level of complete tolerance in the circle prior to September 27th and the 0 tolerance post September 27th? I understand there was shortage of staffages, but that was a thing for the last 8 years. Parks is always underfunded and understaffed. But you're telling me that there's been no change, but there is such, I just wish I could impress upon everybody to go back and look at the historical data where there is a tolerance of expression in the park. And my friend Scott, who comes in, he's my friend because I met him coming into the park. He comes in to enjoy the park, and he has seen the difference from before and now. And it is stark.
And again, I'm just reiterating once again, you're not arguing that the rules have changed. You're arguing that the enforcement has changed.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. And you would like to have a dialogue over whether or not the rules are should be reconsidered.
If it could be an honest dialogue towards some kind of positive action on all sides, I would most welcome that.
Yeah.
My experience with the dialogues in the last 2 years has been that city staff has stood up very firmly against wanting to move forward on any of these topics. Konami can back me up on this.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm trying to say here. The premise of, hey, look, I know there are rules, but I'm arguing over whether or not they're being enforced is different than I would like to debate the rules.
Well, I would say that before September 27th, there was a de facto way to enforce the park that everybody had accepted, used, and gone with. The artists stayed within certain rules of 8 feet high, 8 feet wide, 5 feet high, 3 feet deep. The artists know these rules and they've stayed within it. There are a few specific examples that do not follow those rules, but there is 0 space legal for art in Washington Square Park. When Inspector Thompson referenced earlier that when they kick the artists out, that they provide space for them to move to, that space is made up. It is ad hoc.
Okay.
And it is not, it's space that is not.
Janine, go on mute.
Sorry.
Okay.
And some of those spaces violate the very rules that they're trying to enforce. They do block major entrances. And I would really, really like to have a major dialogue with the players that are in this and move forward so that there is not 0 art in the park, and maybe not something that completely represents a Turkish bazaar. There's got to be someplace in the middle.
Yeah, I agree.
There has to be.
Before we go any further, can somebody, because I'm getting tons of stuff in the chat about a Supreme Court opinion. Does anyone know anything about it?
Letterman took the city of New York.
Yeah, I know, Robert.
And through that, the rules that exist in the city for expressive matter arts were developed.
Yeah.
Most city parks have medallions you may know about that are marked expressive matter. Washington Square Park is maybe the exception to that rule.
It's flipped, Eric. There's only 4 properties in the city that have medallions. Everywhere else is actually the spatial rules.
There you go.
That apply in Washington Square.
There's never been medallions in the park because those rules explicitly prohibit space that would allow those artists to be there.
Okay. Okay, let me make a note.
I think Frederica still has her hand.
Yeah, Frederica, did you want to add more?
Well, I haven't said anything to add to, so.
Okay.
I feel as if I would love to, I feel there's such genuineness on the part of the artists, and there's such genuineness on the part of the inspector. That there's some like scrambler in between them. And Will, I wonder if wouldn't be a good idea for you to get a copy of the rules that the PEP people think that they should be enforcing, and get a copy of a set of the rules that the artists think they should be enforced, and compare them and see if they're actually on the same page.
Again, I don't think that's the issue, Frederica. I think everyone agrees that there are rules and they can see them all on the same web page. It's the enforcement question. It's not.
Well, yes, they said something changed, but there have been in the past 12 years that I've been on this committee, there have been other times when the rules have been enforced.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like this.
Okay.
So we still haven't heard what the do we really understood what the Supreme Court ruling was and what it superseded, and there's
Robert,
and do the rules incorporate the precedents or the findings of the Supreme Court?
So Robert has put it in the chat essentially that the Supreme Court did uphold the 2010 rules that the city made related to express matter vending, and the spatial rules preceded that ruling.
So
again,
Will, do you know that?
Again, I don't think anyone's debating that there are rules. The question is the enforcement of the rules. Right?
I know, but I think it's still a good idea to make sure everybody is enforcing the same set of rules. So,
Well, I'm sorry. Do you have a citation? I'm just for my own edification. Do you know what court case that was? What the name of it was?
I do not, although I'm sure Robert does and can put it in the chat.
I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am, you had your hand up again. Yes. I would like to, because I liked your point before, I would like to hear your next point. Sometimes.
We do know that like the park rules are not making sense, especially when again, this is the direct quote from the website, and there's a section called Washington Square Park, and how it's introduced is a gathering spot for avant-garde artists in a battleground for just enthusiasts, etc., etc. So if the park rules are somewhat prohibiting us to display our expression, I think park rules need to be modified for a positive change. I know it takes a long time, but for now, we cannot wait until like maybe law might be changed and like the park rules change like 5-10 years later. So that is why we are asking. We do see the change in enforcement. Yeah. So can we work on it now? And then at the same time, as a long-term solution, we also consider to modify the park rules so that we can express ourselves in Washington Square Park as it is explained exactly on the website of Washington Square Park.
I appreciate your very pragmatic approach. I have one question for you. And back to you, Eric. I don't think that the hearing you want really is just between the PEP officers and the artists.
Exactly. And if you don't mind me speaking a little bit more, I've been trying to modify the park rules for a better change, for not just for the performers, because the local residents around the park, many of them also enjoy the performers, artists. So I'm really trying to find a middle ground, like somewhat like we can all agree on possibly. And I even have a proposal. And I am a performer, so besides the distance rule, I need to deal with the amplification groups. Right?
Yes,
and then I do have a proposal about what about specifying the time and the volume of the speaker we use. Like I'm never asking to blast my music at the highest level of the volume at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., for example. That's exaggeration, but like considering like they're allowing to have movie nights, salsa nights, a lot of like music, loud music happening in the park. I know it's with the permits, but if that's allowed, I think there's a reasonable middle ground we can find. Like, what about just not saying like, oh, all the amplification is already banned? And like, it doesn't make sense, especially when acoustic musical instruments, even if it's 100 decibels drum set, is all around from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. So, we have all those time frames. And I understand that like it's beyond the committee board, but I'm just saying that I've been trying this effort for the past 4 years. I will have a petition with over 4,000 people signed on it. So I'm hoping like this meeting will go somewhere a little, for the long term.
Well, that was the goal. The hope was to get you an audience, and we have. I think the next question is, if there is a review of I think it's of the rules and the enforcement of the rules, I think we have to have a session or a meeting where
we did
where a broader group of constituents are represented.
I had a meeting with council member.
Yeah.
But because of the remapping situation,
Yes.
that was district.
They changed,
the
yes.
park was in District 1.
Right.
So I was having a long conversation over the multiple Zoom meetings with the council member from the District 1, but because of the remapping.
Marte Chin?
Yes.
Chris Marte, Margaret Chin?
It went from Marte.
Yeah, from Marte. And now it's changed to.
Carlina Rivera.
Exactly. So I kind of feel like I need to start everything all over from the scratch. And, that's not what I was hoping, but I guess that's what I need to go through.
I mean, we can encourage Councilmember Rivera to have this meeting or to encourage us to have this meeting. I just want to make sure that.
And actually, I wanted to introduce the Biani from the Council District 2, and thank you for your precious time to be here. That's why I communicated with her, and she's
Great.
present here in this meeting today. So.
Okay. Well, we can, I can pledge to ask the council member to hold a meeting. We have, or we can be asked by them to hold the meeting. But I would just insist again that the goal would be to get a broad representation of constituents, not just the Parks Department and the performers or the artists.
Agreed.
And it's not, when we talk about these things, it's not just the people who live around the park. There are people who attend the park.
And I would love to include everyone as much as possible as well. And I do care about the safety of the park, safety of the community. And me and other artists, we have experience to assist police officers in terms of sometimes the police officers need some investigations about incidents happening sometimes in Washington Square Park,
Yep.
right? And then artists are good observers because we are in the park for many hours per day and we see a lot of incidents, and sometimes we can provide a lot of information about any incidents happening in front of us. So I just wanted to emphasize that we are not here to harm any of the safety.
Yeah.
But we are more to collaborate with, any other people. Like it can be residents, police officers, anyone trying to make the park safe. We are all in it.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Just for my own question, I'm sorry to go off. Do you perform or display in other parks?
No, I am a dance performer.
Yeah, I know, but do you do your dance performance in Union Square or?
I have tried a little bit other locations, but I mainly stick with Washington Square Park because it's not just about the location.
Yeah.
I do love the community. I do love the people I almost see every day. And there's really genuine communication with those people. And that's what makes the park safe because we know each other.
Yeah.
And we can help each other.
I just was wondering if there was a best practices in another park that you propose to be represented.
Again, it's not about just the location to me, and maybe some other people and artists have other perspectives, but for me, it's more about people who are in the community.
Okay.
So.
Well, look, Eric, he came last time. And Will pledged and he delivered getting Inspector.
Thank you, Will.
Up there,
I
yeah.
appreciate that. I appreciate everybody's effort to come out. If I could just say one quick thing.
Sure.
I say this all the time, but I think it's important to be heard. The artists are there to support the mission of the police and the PEP officers of keeping the park safe and fun. That's it. We do not see ourselves as opposition to you guys.
Yeah, I think as who said it, everyone or Frederica, everyone's here. I think everyone and online in here trying to be sincere and collaborative. So
the one panel. Sorry, Carter.
Okay.
There's Parker behind there, and then a panelist.
Yeah, Carter. I'm sorry, I didn't see
A lot
that.
of these, I've been to a number of the meetings, the 6th Precinct Community Council meetings. There are obviously other ones that I haven't been that everybody's at, but the rules are, and Will brought this up, and it's regularly brought up by community affairs officers. The rules are applied in many different ways, and what what happens is that everybody starts to talk about a specific event, and then they talk about the specifics of that event.
I know.
It's different than the rules. And earlier, Will brought up blocking pathways as opposed to expressive matters. Right. So part of this is that it's always an evolving landscape. The park is not the same every day, as you guys know.
And more crowded.
Officers, you know, just because they may have been assisted by people doesn't mean that they're not going to enforce the rules the next day.
No, you're
And this, you know, the changes of what happens is a big part of what's happened in the last few years. And it may feel like the rules are being imposed differently. It may feel like they're doing the same thing, you know, different sides, but I think that's why we see the sincerity on both sides. But the park is also much more crowded, it seems to me, of late, as it has been over many, many years. And things have changed, technology has changed, the ease of doing things has changed, but the rules are still the rules. And what I recall is that the community consistently asks for enforcement of the rules. And so the rules are a broad matrix of address different things.
I agree, but for all the reasons you said, I think we're
it's very complicated. And
I agree with everything you said, Carter, which yes, things have changed. Parks got more crowded. Technology has changed, you know, COVID, post-COVID, all those things. We also were able to do things like decibel readings and say that there's a factual reading of what's too loud. Maybe the summary of all this is maybe it's time to review the rules.
And also, Jess, I wanted to say that, like, I do know that not the parks department, I heard the sanitation department officers, they do carry the device which has an ability to measure the decibel levels.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is just not something unreasonable, and you know, even the subway system, they have decibel rules and performance chemicals. So I just wanted to point out that the idea of measuring the decibel levels is nothing unreasonable.
No, we years ago we pushed. It is.
Who does it apply to? One person gets to play the stats.
Well, it's amplified versus drums versus
I mean, and this is just an evolution in new technology of the different.
Absolutely right, and we've been talking about that one.
Very difficult.
But
the sound measurement, the problem is training.
That is definitely right.
Is that the officers are properly trained.
Look, this is a process, Eric, and I pledge, you know, we'll follow the lead of council member on this, obviously, but you know, I wanted to get to the hearing. They came, and Will, again, I appreciate you dialing in from the family event. And
Inspector Thompson, it looks like you're still at work, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
All right, and we'll put it in there, and we'll in the notes request that, you know, there be the follow-up meeting, whether it be led by the council or led by the community board, or if they suggest we meet it, then we'll do it.
I also had a brief communication with the Manhattan Borough Commissioner Tricia and Parks Commissioner Suzanne Donahue. So I know they're super busy, but I am just saying that if that's possible, it's really great to have them included.
Agreed. That's part of that broader coalition, I'm saying,
Right.
Thank
and Tricia responded to you, Konami, and asked for some dates in January to meet with you in the park.
Thanks, Konami.
I'm aware of that.
Let me just hold you guys a few minutes more when we go to a business session.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Did you have a couple people with hands up? I don't know if you're online through that or.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
I don't, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm out of time.
Motion to enter business.
Yes, thank you. Let's go to business session. I'm sorry, there is one more thing before we go to business session, Frederica. Steve Simon called me. I had a question. We had a meeting about Jefferson Market Garden back in April. And there was a question posed, which was, can we just see the agreement between the Parks Department and the Jefferson Market Garden organization that we all applaud for all the great work they do? We just wanted to understand, you know, what the agreement was. Are they allowed to run events? Are they allowed to keep them, you know, use the money, all that? After a long search, archivists, National Archive, whatever that movie was, it was determined there is no such agreement. No one can find it. If it ever existed, it can't be found. A new role has been created. There is a new person hired. Steve didn't tell me the name. Maybe Will, if you know.
or somebody in Parks, that is tasked with sitting down and creating an agreement. And I pledged that we would make it a topic at a meeting so that we could provide input into that.
It's likely someone in our strategic partnerships division.
That's exactly what it was.
Headquarters, yeah. I don't know who exactly Steve was referencing.
Strategic partnership department, yes. Okay, let's go.
I hope that CB2 will be involved in the building up of this document rather than just reading it after.
No, I think we should give our input in the beginning of the process. I agree.
Great, very good, thank you.
Okay, business session.
Thank you to everybody for coming.
You guys.
Thank you for waiting, guys.
For those online and members, three
Thank
topics.
you, committee.
Let me write a resolution. Are we in support of the public art installation?
Yes.
Sure. Yes. Everybody, anybody have an issue with that?
No.
All right. What if it's if there are some details, I'll send it around. If there's some details that are surprising to you that because we rushed a bit, please do raise a question on it. That's one. Okay, on this one, this second one was this one. I don't see a resolution at this point.
We could consider a resolution to request the officers change enforcement priority away from the artist until we are able to conduct such a meeting, as it seems like there is a misunderstanding of enforcement priorities between what we've heard from the artist and from the inspector.
I think that'd be opening up a can of worms.
Yeah, I wouldn't say priorities. I would say maybe lighten up on the enforcement until we've clarified that everybody's working from the same rules. But let's not have the police be going back and forth about the priorities.
Now, I think the question that we left for clarification was the one that was raised about performers not having to adhere to the red circles. You expressed it better both times I asked you to do it because you read it out. But you know what I mean?
This is Coral. I'm going to speak out of turn because I raised my hand and wasn't called on.
Yeah, you could attend the meeting.
I feel like I have a point here that could really resolve
the
this.
meeting in person too, Coral. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I never. They're supposed to be equal.
Yes, it's supposed to be hard though. It's difficult.
It's supposed to be equal, and I think that there is a process here that is not being respected. It's called the Arts Division, which Elizabeth was on the call today. And so what we should do is lean on the institutional framework that currently exists, which is for all these performing artists to work officially through the division that actually exists, which is the Arts and Antiquities area of Parks, to work this out. They have a process. They have a long institutional history of doing this, and they should be working through that, not through Will, not through us, through the Arts and Antiquities Division, which is set up specifically to handle this.
I don't have any perception that what you said is true.
Yeah, no, it is. Ask them. That's literally that's their mandate. The Arts and Antiquities mandate is that.
That division was for something completely different.
I think their job is to talk about installations. Coral, I don't know how.
I think they would not agree with that. All right, Washington Square Park has behaved differently, but that's not because it wasn't set up differently. And that is an institutional area of the Parks Division that is set up to handle that. So why shouldn't they be the ones dictating or managing this specifically as an area, not us?
Coral, at first blush, I'm going to guess that you're entirely wrong, but I could be wrong myself. So I will ask that you and I look into this.
Just ask the division. Ask Kuhn and Elizabeth.
Okay. And okay, we can ask them exactly what we should ask them if they would like to
do their job, which is managing the arts and antiquities that are in the public space, specifically parks, which is actually their mandate.
Right. And that's
their mandate, and they decide the process and how to set up both what is appropriate in each space
Right.
and the process for doing that.
And
That is their authority, and we would then give, input as they ask.
right, and do performers, and under your suggestion, do performers fall under that as well?
Yeah, that's art.
Okay.
I mean, they could establish the process.
Yeah.
It's institutionalized within the Parks Division.
Okay.
And it could be then input, they want to do this. They want to support the arts in the area. So I just don't see why we wouldn't support the institution that currently exists within the agency, which is Parks, to do this. And in fact, they could give all the, I just don't see that would be a negative thing. I mean, if they don't have the capacity to do that, then that's a different, that's a different issue. But they have had history of doing this for many, many years. And perhaps in this area, it's been more informally addressed. And so my question is, why not ask them if they would like to take the lead on this?
Wait, Coral, you're suggesting that every single performer or artist who enters the park has to have gone through the park's art organization first?
They can establish whichever process they is. It can be you do at whatever level, then you need this level of check-in.
Well, they've
could be
already
very little.
The rules exist. The rules
so they would be the ones then determining that this is the rules that are appropriate. And we've collaborated with the artists, and this should be enforced.
But before we do that,
so we have rules. People are currently objecting to the fact that there's been inconsistent application or enforcement of the rules. So, and maybe questioning the appropriateness of the rules.
Right.
So why not have the division that's in charge with arts and performance in the parks say, okay, these are the rules that we definitely agree with, and we need to do a better job of having them enforced. And that's not us, that's Parks. That's the arts division of Parks.
I see. So you're not saying they haven't done their job for as long as we've ever known about them. That's not what you're saying.
I am saying in the particular area of Washington Square Park, there has been inconsistency in authority, and so you know what, that is true. We all know that across the board. So, but that doesn't mean that these are institutions or areas or agencies or enforcement vehicles that should be disregarded. I just don't think that it's necessarily a CB2 thing that we have to do every month in the CB2 meeting of Washington Square Park, or even the Washington Square Park administrator. This is a parks arts specific issue that should be thought of conceptually and thoughtfully about what is the arts that we are supporting in this area. And they can set up and if they say we can't, then it comes back to us.
Okay.
Human hand is up.
What?
I'm just thinking about, thinking about this. It seems we have some different types of artists using the park.
Yes, that's correct.
Evolution.
That's right.
And the existing rules are not tailored.
I agree, which is what I've been saying,
And maybe the beginning step is to reevaluate the users of the park, because remember before we used to have a lot of folk singers.
Yeah.
And they all sat in their certain circles.
Exactly right.
And figured out the rules.
Exactly
and then there was, performers.
Yeah.
And they have their spaces, and maybe this is just another evolution of the regular attendees.
Yeah, I agree.
Parks expressing themselves.
Right. We've also,
how do these rules apply? I mean, that's.
But we've also had extraordinary cases. There was a story. I don't know if you guys remember. There was a guy selling soap, and then he said that he read the ingredients in an artistic way, and that he then said he qualified and to sell his soap because he was reading. I mean, there are a lot of performers. There are a lot of artists. Yes.
I think one thing we struggle with, not even struggle. I don't necessarily care what the specifics of the rules are. It's clear that there are things that are chosen to be enforced specifically that are unique to Washington Square Park.
Right.
Do not apply to other parks in the city.
Parks are different. Yeah.
Each park is different. There are some, I believe, Will, I think was his name from park. Yeah, brought up there's a handful of parks that are treated somewhat differently. I think Washington Square Park is even more different than that. So as much as we're talking about rules, we either also need to have an opinion on, do we think Washington Square Park is different, which I think it does. I think we're going to be in this weird situation where it doesn't really matter specifically what the rules are. It needs to be, as you are sort of perhaps trying to orchestrate, an understanding between these artists here and the officials of the park.
It can be done periodically. It should be done periodically. It hasn't been done in a while. Let's just.
The mistake you brought up a really key point. I think this is important to keep in mind. I think it's a mistake to talk about enforcement of the rules.
I agree.
Because you can't, that is not at the discretion of anybody.
It's a very thin premise.
And that's at the discretion of the people who are in the park at the moment, whatever time it is. But changing the rules to better adapt them and have more clarity.
That's exactly right.
It sounds like your Carter has a great idea, but I don't know that I can hear it from that distance.
It's a good idea because he's basically repeating my idea. So.
All right, good. And I thought your idea was a good one, but about Coral's idea. Coral has a good idea.
Yeah.
But I looked up the Arts and Antiquities Department of the Parks Department, and it's 800 monuments. It's not performers. So before we pin any hopes on Coral's idea, is a good one once we find the right division.
We could ask.
I don't think we should proceed thinking it's the Arts and Antiquities Department.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah,
Rich,
I just agree with Carter's point that you have to have modifications from time to time.
Yeah, it's just we've been doing.
We've all agreed.
Yeah.
Can we make one request of the inspector and ask if they have any data on their enforcement actions in the park? We're hearing two different stories. If there is no data, there might not be any. They might not be ready to step down.
I think they have data on, when they give tickets or things, but as far as
if that exists, it would be nice to know. I would.
You know how many tickets they've given? No. All right. So
separate from the arts division, there's an arts and cultural area of the parks. And this would probably falls the things that are not specific art exhibitions could be under the cultural aspect. So they have an arts and cultural. I think we should explore what it
that'd be great. Yeah, please do so. And
we should just ask them which area would like to take leadership in this.
But also there was some endorsement in the chat of the idea of pulling out all the rules and looking at them and seeing who's enforcing what.
Well, there's another issue that's brought up with the precinct community councils that the NYPD is often called as backup to the PEP.
That's right.
And they're assisting another agency that is making decisions, and that spirals out sometimes into whatever the situation is. So it's a little more complicated.
Right, and they can't always
statistics, and they,
we leave it to
always
them.
Many sides, but they have tried to explain certain circumstances, and it's very complicated. When you hear what.
Because priorities come up in the middle of something and they get called away or they have availability.
Motion to adjourn.
We do not have a quorum. So the people who are online are not, what's it called? Recused. They're not.
I actually count if it makes any difference.
Oh, okay, good. No, I wondered about that. Yeah. So.
But did you want to do a reso on anything?
So that was the question. I don't think we can, even if we chose to.
Need 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Did the public members count?
No. Yeah, for quorum, yeah.
Did I sign in or?
You did, and you count to a quorum, but we have a lot of people who aren't in.
If we have 6, then I'll quorum.
Signing me?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sorry, I gotta take another. Matt, Frederica counts. Yeah, that's right.
But we need. That's not enough.
Yeah. I always lose it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for attending. Yeah.
The bottom is my Instagram down there. I've been documenting the changes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no such thing as extra. I just have it. Yeah.
Like 4,000.
Yeah, I heard that. I did hear that.
You might pass.
This is just a name.
I think that.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. And thank you for coming.
Thank you for listening.
No, this is what we're here for.
I'm not bothered. I've seen meetings so much.
I came up from. I can stop it for this.
because I met Eric in the park and they still let me do it.
How do you do it? I mean, what do you think?
But these last 3 years, my wife and I have come.
This list.
Yeah, I know
What
We hang out.
What happened to this?
And I met Eric there. We've every Wednesday. We are living.
I woke up, you have an opinion on midnight New York?
Absolutely. What's your name? Scott Matt. Let's meet you.
I flew in from.
I had a dog.
Yeah.
With your home? I'm surprised I'm so late. Take your time. I chugged Celsius.
I know, what? My parents live on the park, and I walked by and.
Rich has it, I think. With a list of.
Attendees.
Rich has it.
You have the whole list?
Great.
I ride very. Oh, the parks, I'm not sure if he has the transportation.
Yeah.
But I do. We're adjourned, right? I can't.
We're adjourned.
We'll go the long way.
I never do that.
I was. Yeah.